Welcome, everybody. Today is Tuesday, January 27th, and this is a special meeting of council. And the meeting is called to order. And can we have a roll call?
Councilmember Cooperman,
Here.
Councilmember Kearns,
Present.
Councilmember Hefner,
Here.
Councilmember Fahey,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton, Mayor Lay,
Here.
Councilmember Dickinson.
Here. So as you can see, our mayor is attending via Zoom. He's sick with the flu and trying not to get all of us sick with the flu. And our mayor pro tem Hamilton has a conflict that was months in the making, and so she's not able to attend. So I am presiding over the meeting to make sure that there's someone present who can run the meeting. But our mayor is here with us online, but as you know, with the flu, he may not be here for the whole meeting. So we give him permission to step out if he needs to at any point. But with that said, I just want to set the table for the meeting. We'll go through all the stuff, but just excited to have this meeting. But we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance and then move on to regular business. All right. So we're on to the regular business. The first item is a cultural service update. As what is really funny for a special meeting is to round the corner and see more people than we've had at a meeting in like 5 years. And typically not at a special meeting. So what we were generally prepared for is a presentation from Brandy about cultural services and kind of an update on what's going on this year and what their plans are and what their issues are. And it's really informational, and we'll ask questions and those kind of things, but we're not here to give direction to Brandy about those things. There's no fiscal conversations. And so I know a lot of you are here for that. I was at the Ward 1 meeting. I know a lot of you are here for that topic. So I just want to let you know there is a section here for public comments, and you'll have an opportunity to make public comments as you see fit. But just to not be super surprised that we as a council won't be like digging in deep to one particular item. This is informational. Ms. Cummings telling us all about what's happening this last year and next year. And your comments are going to be super valuable and we appreciate them. But I just want you surprised that there won't be like some big, deep discussion about the things you guys bring up tonight. But maybe that'll be appropriate for another meeting to dedicate a meeting about a particular item. So I just want to set that tone fairly. So with that, I'd just love to start with the presentation if you are ready.
Thank you. Give me just one moment to get my screen up. Absolutely. I absolutely will. Thank you. Is that better? Awesome. Thank you. Of course. Good evening, Council, Mayor, citizens of Louisville. My name is Brandy Cummings. I am your new Director of Cultural Services. I'm excited to join you here this evening to give an update about the success of 2025 and discuss some of the road mapping we've been doing as an organization for 2026. The purpose of our time together today is to provide the council and community with an overview of the things that we have done, understand some department-wide themes that we're seeing throughout all of the divisions, some highlights, and then also talking through some of our priorities for 2026. So when I introduced myself and the community as the new Director of Cultural Services, I'm immediately asked, what does that mean? It's a really great broad title. I've heard people joke that it's the party planning committee, and I proudly wear that badge as well. But I have the distinct honor of overseeing our historical museum, our public library, and our arts and events department. And really those three organizations, I like to refer to them as sister organizations, part of one family, unique personalities for all three, enrich the tapestry of what makes Louisville such a great place to live. We know that city services are core to every person who lives in our neighborhoods, every person who comes into our community for business or shopping. But what keeps people here, what roots people here, is a sense of belonging and a sense of connection. And arts and events, the public library and the museum get to bring that to life every day for all of the citizens that we serve. The Cultural Services Department, again, is made up of 3 unique divisions: the Public Library, the History Museum, and Arts and Events. But it's not just myself and the team alone. We also have a full slate of stakeholders behind us. We have advisory boards that are appointed by council to all 3 organizations, as well as 2 independent 501c3 organizations, the Louisville Public Library Foundation and the Louisville History Foundation, who help provide supplemental programmatic funding for the museum and the library, respectively, as well as advocacy and awareness raising. So today I'd like us to dive in a little deeper to each one of these organizations, talk about what makes them unique and special, and why we are so lucky to have them and the team members here in our community. So taking a closer look at the library, I want to set a little bit of an understanding of the ecosystem that we're in. Public libraries are unique in that we exist off of a borrowing model, both within our constituents and our residents coming to us, but also in how we play across the state. So all of the logos you see here represent partnerships that we invest in order to make the best stewardship of our tax dollars and of our investments to meet the needs of our residents. Whether it's Marmot, which serves libraries on the Western Slope and the Front Range, statewide organizations like the Colorado Library Consortium, our partnership with the town of Superior through the intergovernmental agreement where we provide library service for Superior residents, both in our library and in their community center, or our Front Range downloadable library, which you might better know as like Livy or Overdrive, where you access ebooks and e-audiobooks. All of these consortia help us to make the best economy of scale with our budget to provide the most resources to the community possible. So we're going to take a little bit of a look at 2024 data because 2025 has just ended. Libraries across the state are working on their annual report, so we'll have 2025 data soon. But this is our most reliable data right now, which is 2024. Our service area population combines Louisville and Superior, so about 32,000 residents. Our library card holders are at 118% of our population. Our expenditures per capita, we spend about $58 per resident. And our circulation per capita, we circ about 58 items per resident. Visits in 2024, 6.75. So that would be like every resident in Louisville and Superior visiting their library 6, almost 7 times in 2024. But putting this in context, I think paints a really important picture. So again, pulling some statewide data and looking at our peer libraries who have similar service area populations, you'll notice that our circ per capita and our visits per capita far exceed our peers, which speaks to not only the quality of the product that is in our libraries and the services that we offer, but also the high capacity that the team and our spaces are working at. So as we continue to roadmap for the future, we're really trying to take into consideration how we can best use the investments granted to us by the residents of this community to do the broadest amount of good. You'll notice that, again, the 118% percentage of population card holders, that's because in the state of Colorado, we believe that if your municipality provides a public library, you have the right to go to any other public library to get a library card. So our friends in Lafayette, our friends in Broomfield, our friends in Boulder can also hold a Louisville library card, much like residents of Louisville and Superior can go to any of those communities and have a library card. You'll see Lafayette has a lot of popular friends from across the way with 153%. So if we dig a little deeper, you'll see we're going to travel through time to 2025 numbers. This year, I'm excited to report we've had over 276,000 visits to the library, counting both the campuses in Louisville and Superior. But also a note that this doesn't reflect accurate counts. We did replace our door counter this July, so we know that we lost probably 3 to 4 weeks of clean data for people coming in and out. And we had some issues at Superior, similar, where the door counter was misplaced for a little bit. So these numbers are a little lower than we would typically think, which means that this last year, everyone in both Louisville and Superior made an average of 8 trips to the library. Again, we know that not every resident in Louisville and Superior is using their library to their full services. So that eight trips to the library just speaks to increasing demand on our space, increasing demand on our collection, and increasing demand on our resources and staffing. So inside of Marmot, which is a consortia we belong to, is a micro consortia called MLN2 that is made up of regional partners. So in that micro consortia. We sit with Boulder, Broomfield, and then all of the L towns, Lafayette, Longmont, Louisville, and Loveland. And our friends in Westminster join us for digital collection. Again, looking at 2024 numbers, we can see that our collection supply is modest compared to many of our peers, both in our print and our digital collection. Our other collection, the 9,773 items, speaks to unique items in our collection like Wi-Fi hotspots that we loan out to provide internet access to people in our community who don't have reliable internet access at home. We circulate quite a few of those. There's a very long waiting list. We're hoping to invest in more. That also includes technology items like telescopes. There's a ghost hunting kit in case you have an area that you want to do some investigation in, but also science, technology, engineering, and math kits and early literacy kits for caregivers to take home to engage in some of those practices. On this slide, I also snuck in some meeting room use. As we know, public libraries across the nation serve as community living rooms, and our meeting room use continues to increase. There's a huge demand on community space that is available to citizens for meetings, for programs, for their own artistry. And in 2024, we saw 6,113 bookings of our meeting rooms, which is quite impressive, especially when we look at our peers like Boulder, who it's going to be impossible to beat in print collection, but we are certainly outpacing in meeting room use. Again, speaking to the capacity of the demand from the community on these spaces. So if we look at circulation in 2025, we checked out nearly 500,000 items, physical items. So 456,000 physical items were checked out, 108,000 digital downloads, and we had 32,000 unique digital visits. So while we can't say who checked out what, we can tell you that 32,000 unique individuals came to our digital sites to visit them because library data is protected, even from us in some instances, and this is one of them. And that means that on average, our users are checking out 14 items per year and downloading 3 digital titles per year, which, if you look at a cost savings calculator available on the Colorado State Library website, is an average savings of about $336 per resident, per user. This speaks to regular use and not just occasional use for your public library, which all speaks to the health and curation of the staff in the collection. A really brief slide on digital lending. I know you've heard a bit of my spiel before about how we could go very deep into this topic, but ultimately digital lending feels like it should be a value add and a budget save to libraries. But in reality, we aren't purchasing individual downloads. Rather, we are purchasing licenses. And so publishers have the ability to determine the cost, the loan time, and the availability of the license. So typically, a license would cost the public library 3 to 5 times the cost of a regular consumer copy. So a book you might find on Audible or on your Kindle may cost you $16. It might cost the library $112. And we have to restrict it to 1 user at a time. So we have long wait lines. And after a certain number of usage, which is determined by the publisher, we are required to buy a new item, which is common practice in libraries for our physical collections as well. But by the time we typically have to replace a physical item, it's been dropped in a couple bathtubs, it's been chewed on by a dog or two, it's lived a really good life. With a digital item, we don't get the same coverage. And so we're investing heavily in our digital lending to provide the best service we can, but it is a capacity concern with our budget. What is great here is we're working closely with our foundation to try to reduce some of those wait times and diversify the funding so we can provide more services to our community. So taking a look at the funding, again, back at our peers in MLN2, you'll notice that our budget is modest compared to most of our peers. So our print budget, our digital budget, and our other collections ranges in the lower quadrant for most of the peers around us. But again, our circulation ranks in the top 10 of the state year after year, which speaks to, again, the curation that's happening from our professional staff, ensuring that the community is finding items that they are interested in and are high demand, high impact on the shelves. That work is not simple work. That work is behind the scenes work, and it often takes librarians many hours to curate this sort of information. So I'm so proud of the team. Our operating budget in 2024 is on par with some of our friends, but definitely a little bit low compared to others. So if we were to jump to 2025, a lot of time travel, you'll see that our budget breakdown comes 76% of our operating budget is from the city of Louisville. With the intergovernmental agreement from Superior, 21% of our budget comes from them. Oddly enough, in 2025, there were 7,255 Superior residents who chose Louisville as their home library, which is exactly 21% of our cardholders. Those numbers continue to line up year after year. But 9,993 Superior residents actually have library cards inside of the MLN2 consortia, which is a higher percentage of their community. And they are only able to have those library cards because of our agreement. And so while they might not be choosing Louisville as their home library to pick items up in, they're receiving library service because of our service to them. About 0.5% of our funding comes from a state grant, which is available to public libraries across the entire state of Colorado. And then 2.5% of our budget comes from our foundation. We also have in here our capital costs because buildings and spaces and technology, take money to maintain, including updating our technology, like our automated material handler, which was a CIP project in 2025. What isn't on here is central costs. As we know, things like HR, IT, and finance are centralized in the city. Looking at our team, we have 32 positions. 10 of those are full-time, 21 are part-time, with most of our part-time employees being about 20 hours per week. And we have one seasonal intern who we bring in during summer reading to help us pull off that feat. We'll talk a little bit about the success of summer reading soon. Currently, we have one part-time vacancy. We are open 58 hours per week, 7 days a week with multiple shifts. So the library is open from 10 a.m. to 8 a.m. or 8 p.m., most days. And that requires 3 people per service desk. We have 3 service desks in our library, the circulation desk, children's, and upstairs. But we also have team members running programs. We have team members curating collections. We have team members driving homebound delivery for people who can't get into the library for medical reasons or other reasons. We bring library services to them because public library access is a right. It should not be dependent on whether or not it is accessible to you physically. We also rely heavily on volunteers. So in 2025, we had 1,595 volunteer sessions with over 2,000 hours of support. And this support ranges from tutoring sessions to reading programs to materials processing, which is an operational need. And so we are so grateful for the community continuing to support the library in these ways. And we really couldn't make the library work and be what it is without them. In 2025, we also offered 622 programs and saw over 28,000 attendees, which is a spectacular number. You'll see that programs and attendance line up with kids and youth and family services, which speaks to the importance of the public library as an equitable and accessible resource to our families. We know that early literacy rates depict the future of strong communities, and so we're happy to play a part of building that fabric. Summer reading, which is undeniably one of our longest standing, most successful programs, really kicked off in 2025. The team did an amazing job. Just a few quick growth metrics showing that from 2024 to 2025, again, that demand continued to grow. We saw completion and sign up growth in all age categories. And then our summer reading carnival, which is sort of the piece de resistance, where we activate downtown with some family-friendly fun, saw increased attendance of 25% this last year. All of this speaks, of course, to the hard work of those 32 employees and everything that they give to this community. What's on the horizon for us is a data dashboard. As a person who came to librarianship with a business background, data is paramount to how we make our decisions. So we're working on creating more standardization in how we look at that data. We are in the midst of a cultural services strategic plan, which is an item on your work plan. And we are really excited to continue that work together and continue to have those mechanisms to hear from our community. We're going to spend some time looking at our collection. While our collection is obviously in high demand and is very reflective of the needs of the community, it's important that we're looking at the diversity of the items that are on our shelves, both in their authorship and in their topics. And then we're applying for a few grants this year, which are pretty exciting. The Peggy Barber Tribute Grant focuses on closing the gap on social isolation, especially for our senior communities. And then we are applying for the National Endowment of the Arts Big Read Grant, which is a community-wide lift that'll go across all of cultural services and activate some of our community partners. And of course, more library joy. That bubble picture just, makes every day worth it. We're really excited to bring more possibility, more exploration, and more curiosity to the families and residents of Louisville. So next, let's take a look at our friends at the museum. We know that the historical, go ahead.
Would it make sense if there are specific questions about the library? There's a lot and you're going to keep going. I'm wondering if it makes sense if I don't know if you guys have, but is that okay?
Happy to entertain the questions.
Thank you for this presentation so far. It's been very informative. I'm curious about what the status is on the makerspace, and also want to thank you for doing the Battle of the Books program. So my grandson is participating in that, so I read the books along with him. But it's a great program. So what about the makerspace?
Yeah, so our makerspace is a bit more untraditional than some of the libraries in our region, where we operate it more as a makerspace on demand. So looking at the data and how the space was being used, we recognized that the community was more interested in having access to the meeting space alone than having it restricted to always being activated with 3D printers, sewing machines, or some of the other equipment. However, we have that equipment available. So when people make inquiries about it, we're able to turn the space back into a makerspace and switch it right back over for crafting projects with our programs like Creative Bug, which offer, on-demand tutorials on how to participate in arts and crafts, or for projects that the community is working on. What's great about the flexibility of that space is it helps us meet a wide variety of needs without leaving the space stagnant at any time.
Thank you.
Of course. And Battle of the Books is fantastic. As a former participant, it's one of my favorite things. And it's really fun to see the kids excited about those titles year after year.
Josh?
The budget for digital materials, so does that just reflect the titles that the Louisville Library itself holds? And we, even though we're in these consortia, we end up holding certain titles ourselves, and that's what that amount of money is paying for, essentially.
Yeah, that's a great question. Digital lending is really complex. So the budget that you see is what we contribute to that larger purchasing power, that economy of scale. And in addition to that, we buy what is called advantage copies. Advantage copies is how we ensure that our residents have shorter waits, premium access to high demand titles. So if we go back to the slide that shows how many items we have, you'll notice that ourselves, Westminster, and I believe Lafayette have the same number of digital titles. That's because that's what our contribution purchases. But because we're part of that consortia in Marmot, that micro consortia specifically with MLN2, we have access to all of the items that also Boulder or Loveland or Longmont are purchasing as well. And because of the agreement across the state, our community members could access a Boulder library card for even more digital resources than what we are able to provide with our budget.
Okay, that's helpful. And is there any movement at the state or federal level to deal with some of these digital lending issues?
Yes. So I've been working with a cohort with American Library Association for the last 7 years on helping to prepare lobbying action around regulation with digital lending platforms. There's just not a really good system set up for it. It's still a bit of the Wild West. Technology often outpaces us, especially in library land. Yeah.
Do you expect anything coming up, or it's kind of more on the?
I would be surprised if we see any movement in the next 3 years.
And then just one little question, who organizes the volunteers at the library?
So right now we have a team member. Her name is Jill, who works in our materials handling processing department, and she oversees our volunteer process as part of the citywide volunteer process.
Thanks.
Judy?
Okay, thanks. Good information. I appreciate your enthusiasm for data. That I think that will help like breed success and get us to the biggest bang for the buck. Since Deb brought up the makerspace, I was curious. I like the idea of making the space more usable based on the community demands, but are the items that would normally be utilized there, are they available to be taken like you do books to like the senior center for programs for people who don't make it to the library and can't reserve it for any reason?
Yeah, so those items are available for our team to take out on the road for programs. Outreach is one of the areas where we're identifying for 2026 priority building. So looking at how do we deepen our relationships with the senior center, with our friends at rec, with our friends in parks. We do some programming now at Bellflower and Kestrel. And so we're looking how do we continue to meet the community where they're at with those services, everything from book talks to sewing machines.
Awesome. And then two quickies. Do you know what the people capacity at the library is? Like how many people can be there at one time? Any idea?
In the
building
entire
capacity?
library?
Yeah, the building capacity.
Not off of the top of my head, no. Happy to find that out and bring it
No,
back.
I probably could ask after. I was just curious based on the number of people that use it, and it's essentially the entire population. I was curious how many of us could fit in there at once. So, uh, but we talk about a lot of the lending and the volume. And you separate it out for programming between children, adults, and teens. Do you have that for the lending as well so that we can see what those numbers are?
I don't have them today, but I can bring them back. We are able to separate it out by age. So we can tell by age group how much is circling where. Typically, it is common to see kind of a lull between 18 and 24. Typically, when we get into sort of college ages, people aren't coming to their public libraries as much. National trends continue to show that people come back as they start their own families and then come back again as they sort of move into that next phase of life where they are maybe caregiving as grandparents or tending to their own curiosities and needs. So I'd be surprised if our data didn't align, but I'm happy to pull that report and share it out.
Oh, that'd be great. Because I was curious too, like when we're making purchases, children's books tend to be less expensive, but you need a ton of them because they're for 8 in a single night if you read well to them. And with an adult book, though, they're a little bit pricier, but they sit out there a little bit longer. It takes maybe a little bit more time than just one night. Although my mother can go through a book in 2 nights, so I don't know. My mother reads like 6 books a week. And just like a big thank you again. It's a little bit of a plug. I'm originally from the city of Philadelphia, which is Ben Franklin's town, which is the home of founder of Libraries in America. So very proud, long history of this. And it's an amazing community library. You guys do a phenomenal job for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
My only question, this is not a budget meeting and there's no fiscal impact of the conversation tonight. But it does seem that there's a sort of narrative of we're doing a lot with not a lot of resources. And an interesting about libraries, right, is there's not a connection. As you get more and more people, they're not paying more and more money necessarily. And so there's just not a natural one-for-one change there. I know my company sponsors the summer reading program, so it's an opportunity for us to give money to the library. Are there other opportunities for direct giving from residents to the library? And I didn't see that as part of like the funding source. Do you get a substantial zero? How does just donations work?
That's an excellent question. That funding is reflected in the donation or the grant from the foundation. So that $56,000 that was given in 2025 is a combination of summer reading sponsorships, of citizen donations. The community also donates items to the library, which the foundation will then use for book sale proceeds. And so that money comes back to the library as well for operating. All of the money that the foundation raises goes right back into either our collections or our programs, and occasionally some staff support. So things like pizza for the summer reading carnival. And things like that. So the community has the opportunity to engage by direct donations to the foundation, which is an independent 501c3. So it's a tax deductible donation. Make a plug while I have it, right? And it's a really great organization that's helping to continue shape the services that we can do and supplement to what the city provides.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting. Like if my kid's super engaged and gets 10 books, it doesn't cost me any more. If they're not engaged at all, never go there, it doesn't cost me anything. And to think about, oh, we're putting a lot of stress on the library and not paying for it, which is the design, but my family would absolutely be willing to pay a little bit more. So just kind of thinking about if there's a gentle but straightforward way to help, residents think about, sure, I could do $5 a month, I could do $10 a month and have that bolster up the funding. But that's another conversation for another day. And I think we're ready to move on unless. Oh, thanks. Yeah, go ahead, Chris. Chris, you're muted. You're still muted just in case. Yep.
Yep. Sorry, I haven't
There-
been on Zoom in a long time here. I saw on the slide about kind of the 2026, what's on tap there. I didn't see anything about the 150th and 250th. I wonder, that is 150th anniversary of Colorado becoming a state, 250th anniversary of the Declaration. I wondered what sorts of activities are planned there, and are those through your cultural services?
Thank you, Mayor. That's a great question. So yes, we will have 250, 150 programs that happen at the library in partnership with the museum and arts and events. Predominantly, that initiative is being spearheaded by Museum and Arts and Events, as we have received support through SCFD funding, which doesn't apply to the library, but the library will be participating in events. So as we get a little further into the presentation, I promise I touch on that too. Of
Good, thanks.
course.
All right. If we want to move on to the museum, that'd be great.
All right, we're back. Looking at the Historical Museum. So in 2025, the Historical Museum welcomed over 6,000 visitors. Many of them were international, which I found really fascinating as we looked through that data as far away as Malaysia, and quite a handful from Ireland this year, assuming someone got married somewhere, but it was a very impressive amount of people joining us from Ireland. The museum hosted 89 total programs and tours this year. Just wanted to call out some of the programs of high interest, the Rocky Flats film screening, which unfortunately aligned with a council meeting. We do hope to repeat that in the near future. The museum also participated in 6 of the First Friday activations, which is a Downtown Business Association program. And in fact, the museum has been such a cornerstone partner that the Downtown Business Association adopts their First Friday themes for the businesses, because the museum has such a strong draw of people coming in. In those 89 programs, we saw over 4,262 attendees, including our record-breaking historic baseball game this September, and 123 people attending our Arapaho language and culture program that we did in partnership with Lafayette, where we brought in Fred Mosquito from the Arapaho tribe to talk to us about not only language and culture for the indigenous tribe there, but talk to us about our collection. We took some special time with him to talk about cultural representation and driving forward equitable but also inclusive interpretation of the materials that we have in the museum. On top of that, the museum staff also provides historic preservation support, including 12 annual building reports, which equates over 300 hours in research. They also serve as the community storyteller, producing 4 historians annually, which include local research, interviews, and articles. And they take research requests from the community. In 2025, they saw 53 requests from residents and businesses for information about homes or prominent citizens throughout Louisville. When we look at the museum, there are 6 positions, but that can be quite deceiving because there's 1 full-time, 3 part-time, and 2 seasonal interns. Currently, we have 2 part-time vacancies. The part-time positions are at 100% turnover in my 7 months here. I'm happy to share that all of them have moved on to full-time positions with CU Boulder. They gain really fantastic experience at our museum, which is open 25 hours a week, and also relies pretty heavily on volunteer support for events, especially things like the historic baseball game, which draws in quite a large crowd. On the horizon for the museum is more participation in the cultural services strategic plan. We have the miners cabins, the Trot Downer cabins, which are over by Miners Field, that we're working on a preservation plan for and interpretation. The 250-150 celebrations, which will include a lot of performances, a lot of lectures, a lot of opportunity to engage with Louisville's history, some analyzation of the collection there. So like all museums, we have a backlog and we're doing our best to work through it with a predominantly part-time staff. And then we're also applying for more grant funding with SCFD, which funds cultural institutions throughout Colorado. It's shorter for these ones. Questions about the museum?
Go ahead. I'm going to go Councilmember Fahey this time instead of Deb. I'm going official. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I have a question on, well, a couple. You do interviews of residents and keep track of, is there that an ongoing program? So you're keeping up with that? And how much of an issue do you have right now with space for storage of items, for staff workspace? How is that going?
Thank you for those questions. So the Oral History Project is ongoing. It is a fantastic program, something that we're looking to deepen for the 250-150 celebrations and hopefully in partnership with the NEA Big Read Grant if we receive it. So we are collecting not only histories of everyday Louisville residents, but there's also a special focus on Marshall Fire. So we have a series of interviews that we did shortly after the fire that we're revisiting with those community members before we move into sorry, my Zoom is acting up. Before we move into publishing them, but we'll also continue to gather those stories as the community is in recovery. And then for space is our largest issue. So right now the museum actually pays for external storage space because we're out of storage space in our city buildings to be able to store important artifacts or everyday supplies. So the museum incurs a cost about $1,500 to $2,000 annually for storage space outside of their buildings, which also means that staff time is spent currying back and forth, ensuring that things are climate controlled, properly kept. It affects our ability to catalog quickly and efficiently. So those are all concerns that we're looking at as we look at 2026. How do we expand what we have to make the best use of the resources? Yeah, of course. Any other questions about the museum?
The only other thing I'll bring up is you guys get a significant amount of money from the HPC or the Historic Preservation Fund, which was several years ago that they started dedicating a portion of their money to the museum. That is almost at its end and they're looking to renew it, but you guys are sort of aware of that. I'm curious how much money you guys get from the HPC currently.
2/3 of museum funding is from HPC. So that tax is essential to continuing to provide this cultural institution for our community. It predominantly goes to our staffing costs.
Yeah.
And then our CIP project.
So I imagine you're in collaboration through that process of, because it's their thing about doing that this year, right?
Absolutely.
So that's a huge thing that some people don't know, that HPC or HPF money goes to our museum, which is really amazing and we hope continues. Any other questions around museum? Josh? Councilmember Cooperman?
That's all right. I was actually just going to put out a little suggestion. I kind of think it'd be nice, sort of coming off of the 250-150 celebrations to think about land acknowledgement and maybe something to go along with that, maybe led through the museum. Thanks.
Thank you for that feedback.
Great. Looks like we might be having technical difficulties.
Yeah, it looks like our Zoom disconnected, but we're going to try to troubleshoot it. Thank you for your patience as
Yeah.
we get it reconnected. Thanks, Diana. All right.
Great.
I'm drive the ship from over here. So now we get to look at arts and events, which is a very exciting part of our community here. Arts and events also oversees two city venues, so the Steinbach Pavilion and the Arts Center. And so those include public rentals, partnership rentals like street fair, the farmers market, our resident arts groups. We'll talk about all of those a little bit later in the presentation. In 2025, despite a decrease in budget, arts and events provided 26 events to the community, which is just one less with $10,000 less funding, which speaks to, again, the hard work of this team and the board that supports it, but also seeking sponsorship in the community to help bring these community events to life. 2025 introduced a few new series for us, a world music series, which is ongoing now, the old time fiddle contest, which I'm happy to report will return, Trunk or Treat, which we did at Relish on the Caslin. I'm happy to share that Relish reported that that was their busiest Sunday since they opened. And so we know that these events have the opportunity to drive real economic impact. When we talk about culture, when we talk about community, we see those things come to life. In 2025, we also had approximately 29,000 attendees come to these events. We have to use approximation here because, as you can imagine, trying to head count all of these people is nearly impossible. But I think it's important to note that on Labor Day weekend, we bring about 13,000 people into the community. Between the parade, the senior dinner, and fall festival, we see huge impact at our local businesses, in our arts community, and our residents coming out into the streets and having fun with us. This picture is actually from Movie on Main this year. And as you can see, people are lined up quite a ways back to watch Moana right on Main Street. 2025 also brought 3 public art installations. So we had the George Fields sculpture finish at the South Street Underpass, the very exciting Cottonwood Park mural on the basketball courts, and then a refresh of our pollinator mural, which we're really excited to continue to focus on public art in 2026. So a closer look at what we do in arts and events. In 2025, we had 16 art center rentals and 9 Steinbach rentals. Those don't include our resident arts groups or any of our partnerships like street fair, farmers market, ice rink. Our resident arts groups, we currently have 3 resident arts groups that have residency at the Arts Center, the Louisville Art Association, Coal Creek Theater, and Center Stage. Those are contracted partnerships, so they do pay a flat fee every year with a contract, which allows them priority scheduling and storage in that building. In 2026, there's 315 bookings from our resident arts groups with over 2,900 hours being booked. So again, when we talk about capacity, this is an ongoing pressure point. Reviewing the 2017 Cultural Arts Plan, I'm happy to share that these are the same pain points we were experiencing then. Our facilities haven't grown to help support the expansion of the arts ecosystem. And so we're still feeling some of the struggles there. Looking at that team is a very small but very mighty team. It is 2 people, a full-time arts and events program manager and a part-time coordinator. Currently, we are hiring for that part-time coordinator. Our large-scale community events like Labor Day, 4th of July, summer concerts in the park do require us to borrow staff from other cultural services departments, which sometimes leaves us short-staffed at the library or at the museum in order to pull off these large-scale community events. On the horizon is participation in that cultural services strategic plan. Our 250-150 celebrations have multiple opportunities for public art. There is a call out for the Mary Treebing project, which will be a statue in Memory Square Park, but also the Find the Pomodoro project, which is a community art-based scavenger hunt with local artists creating tomatoes to reflect and honor our Italian-American heritage and sprinkle that joy throughout the community. Right now, we're in the process of awarding our 2026 arts grants, which are still open. We're engaging in Sundance planning. Sundance is currently happening right now. It's last year outside of Boulder. We know that'll be coming and have some real opportunity for us there. We're working closely in collaboration with the Chamber, the Downtown Business Association, and Economic Vitality to try to make the best uses of all of our resources. And we're working closely on in tandem with different community groups on a 5-year Marshall Fire remembrance for this coming December. That's it for arts and events.
Sorry, any questions from council? Josh?
Could you say, so the 16 bookings at the art center, could you just say a little bit more, like, are those individual events and what types of groups are booking? Just a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to be a mixture of artists, nonprofit organizations, arts groups that aren't in our art residency program, private citizens, businesses who all pay the hourly rate to use that space.
Okay. That's all.
Any other questions? No? Okay.
So all of that leads into what's next for all of us as one big organization. So 2026 is a year of great planning. We are partaking in a cultural services strategic plan. This is a rough cut of the timeline. I'm not sharing with you all the monotonous details, but right now we are in current state analysis where the team has been working very diligently at looking at our processes, our policies, our procedures, our workspaces, making sure that our foundations are set for optimal success. March, we will be coming out to the community with a community survey. There'll be opportunity for council and board and community participation in the survey and focus groups, roundtables, stakeholder interviews. We'll move into some data insights and organization in the late summer, plan development, and then the part I think a lot of us miss sometimes, especially in strategic planning, is coming back to the community and saying, hey, here's what we heard and here's what we're going to do. So this upcoming November, December, we plan to hit the road with that information. This year, we're really focusing on aligning services for impact, meeting our community where they are. So again, those outreach opportunities, making sure that the people who aren't using these services know that they are welcome and wanted in all of these institutions, but also that their opinions and thoughts and access matter. We're working on diversifying our funding with potential event sponsorship. We're looking at that as an option for arts and events programming, which we'll bring back to council at a later date. But we're also working closely with the library and museum for foundation support. We're looking to increase our communication about event participation opportunities. We did just have our first 250, 150 meeting last week. Colorado Day, which is in the very beginning of August. Mark your calendar. It'll be a great time to party with us. But also our museum turns 40 this year. And it happens to turn 40 Labor Day weekend. So it'll be a very busy weekend for all of us in cultural services. But please plan to join us for a celebration. Celebrating those 3 wonderful buildings and all of the great fun that the museum brings to us. Our ultimate goal is healthy, inclusive growth. So we're looking to make sure that what we do as this arm of public service that reflects our community, that holds true its stories, that creates access and inclusion, is to make sure our growth is community driven, so that we're listening to everyone, that everyone in Louisville has a seat at the table, that we're creating as much equitable access as possible to our services, but that we're also aligning our resources for operational sustainability. The line of work that I am in tends to do as much as we possibly can because it draws people who are deeply passionate about the work that they do. But we want to really ensure that every resident sees themselves in the services that we're putting out and that they're investing in. So what does that look like? Well, for our community, it's making sure that there's more access, more voices, and more belonging. We want to reduce barriers with both looking at our costs, our scheduling, our language offerings, people's ability to get into buildings. Not all of our buildings are easily accessible if you have any sort of physical differences. We also want to make sure that there's more opportunities for our community members to help shape offerings. So that's going to look like our survey. It's going to look like more talkback mechanisms and more feedback loops, more opportunity to report out and to hear back from the community how we're doing in regular intervals. When it comes to our actual organization, so our 3 sister orgs together, is making sure that our staffing models support retention, making sure that we're creating development pathways and opportunities for internal growth, as well as making sure we're a very attractive workplace as Louisville continues to grow, focusing on how we extend our reach without overextending our team. So that might look like things shifting this year. We know if we don't hit some fundraising goals, there might be programs we have to take off the table. We might have to reduce some resources in order to sustain our staffing and our output levels in a way that ensures the stability of the organization in the long term. We want to take a really good look at our spaces to make sure that they're supporting everyone and that they're accessible to the entire community. So whether that's ADA accessibility, making sure that there's affordable access for nonprofits, artists, and community groups, but also making sure that we're growing and planning to grow with community needs and not just our current demands. Again, looking back at that cultural arts plan, we haven't invested in new facilities or infrastructure in the almost 10 years to support that ecosystem and growth. It's sustained, but we haven't welcomed in new groups. We haven't offered new resources to help that ecosystem thrive. And we want to make sure that we're listening and learning. This doesn't happen in a vacuum. The work that we do is community driven and community reflective. So there'll be a lot of opportunities for feedback loops, a lot of opportunities for conversation. We want to make sure that, again, we're using that data to drive our decisions. And we know that that's not just the quantitative, but also the qualitative. What is the story behind the numbers? But what are those numbers? Being nimble enough to adjust and identify when things aren't working. How do we adjust those gaps? How do we turn? How do we pivot? Right? And then how do we report back to the community with transparency so everyone can see what's happening and what those opportunities are? Ultimately, 2026 is going to be a fantastic year. 2025 was a tremendous success for this team. I'm so proud of the work that they've done. And we all look forward to creating more community joy with and for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. It's been awesome having you join the team. How long have you been here?
Just over 7 months.
7 months. You have really grabbed hold of what we're doing, who we are, and it's amazing how much we do. And you haven't even been able to experience all the events yet. You haven't made it to a year yet.
It's wild.
It's gonna be
This
so much
winter is
fun.
crazy.
Yeah.
I keep trying to put snowshoes in our library of things, but there's no snow, so
Yeah,
it doesn't
yeah.
feel justifiable.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
We have ability to have more comments or discussion later, so we're not gonna do any more questions right now, but we'll go to public comments. So the way public comment works is you either sign a card and bring it up to our clerk. And if you're online, you can raise your hand. I don't see anyone other than Chris. Oh, actually may not see the attendee list. So if you're online, you can raise your hand. You'll get called on that way. You have 3 minutes to speak unless you're pulling your time with a second person, and then you can use all 6 minutes. Whatever you have, 3 or 6, you don't have to use it all. You can say your piece in a minute or so if that works. And then in a large group like this, if someone has said what you're going to say, you can let that be, or you can come up and just say you want to echo it. And so we want to get all the information, but I do understand that sometimes you want to know that multiple people feel that way. And the way to do that is by speaking or what have you. And it's not by cheering or booing. Public speaking is really difficult. And you can imagine if someone gets cheered, it's more intimidating to go up because maybe you'll get booed, maybe you'll get cheered, maybe you won't get cheered, and it can be really scary. So we don't react to any of the speakers. We just allow them to talk to us, and we make it a really welcoming space for people to comment. And so hopefully that benefits you, and that'll benefit everyone else when it's their turn. So with that, we're ready for public comment.
Up first is Lisa Baird, and she has pool time, and she will be followed by Jane Evans.
Thanks. Go ahead, Lisa. And if you also just state your name and whether you're a Louisville resident.
Hello, I'm Lisa Baird, Vice President of the Louisville Art Association and representative of the 240-member voluntary organization. Louisville Art Association, or LAA, is a nonprofit that has served the residents of Louisville for 45 years. Our mission statement: we exist to fulfill the universal need to create and enjoy visual art. We provide the opportunity, and encouragement of all people in our community to come together to improve their artistic skills, share their creation with others, and more fully appreciate the wonders of our visual world. Tonight, we would like to answer the question, why should LAA get resident status preference at the Arts Center? The Louisville Art Association began in 1980, but moved into the building at 801 Grant Street in 1989. The city renovated the space in 97 for the expressed purpose to create a state-of-the-art gallery space. LAA participated fully in raising funds to pay for that renovation, including the design and building of movable walls. Our annual 4 shows in the gallery, which gathers the work of artists from 27 states, regularly receives over 125 submissions for each show, but we can only accept up to 100 for displays due to wall space limitations. For our thousands of visitors, we showcase drawing, painting, sculpture, photography, and professional level crafts of jewelry, fiber, glass, and clay. In 2025, we had approximately 5,000 visitors to our exhibition and 350 attendees to our classes and workshops. In a statistical study, it was identified that when people attend an event, they will spend anywhere from $38 to $61 in the surrounding community through purchases of gifts, foods, drinks, and parking. Therefore, the estimated economic impact from Louisville Art Association activity for 2025 alone was on $200,000. That's on the low end. We bring resources necessary for any visual artist to hone their craft. This includes nationally awarded artists as teachers and trained models into the Arts Center. We have drawing class programs that run both online and in person to support those artists who cannot leave their homes but want to create and continue learning. In warm weather, our outdoor landscape program, lovingly called the Plain Janes, gather to paint and draw outdoors throughout the foothills. Our program, The Art in Public Places, matches our artists' donated work to hang in offices and government facilities, making those spaces more welcoming. We sponsor, hang, and host the annual youth art exhibit in the city library, providing a space where young people can envision themselves as working artists. Clinical Family Health and Wellness opened a new facility last year and partnered with our program, Paintings for Nonprofits. They were able to choose 20 pieces of art donated by our artists. In their presentation of thanks, they said the artwork had created an atmosphere of healing for their clients at a difficult time of their lives. In 2026, for all the above programs, we have requested a total of 105 days out of the year. 40 of those days are for the setup, running, and dismantling of the 4 art exhibits at the gallery. 12 days for live model session, 24 drawing class days, and 12 days to bring nationally recognized artists who provide graduate level teaching. All of these events are open to the public and through easy access on our website. This leaves the Cultural Arts and Events Department 260 days to book other events. And we are thinking ahead to the Sundance opportunities. Film is a visual art. Every movie starts with a storyboard created by an artist trained in classic realism. What connection can LAA make with those artists that might interest our fellow citizens? What if we use the gallery for an exhibition of their work? Our program of civic action for the past 40 years shows that we are not a static group. We are not incubating our businesses as we have been described. We were bestowed resident organization because of our history of voluntary service to the city. Residency is imperative for operational success. It enables the scheduling of the call for entry for artist work, hiring judges for the jury to exhibitions, and recruiting nationally known artist teachers for our workshop. We have just heard about the financial and staffing stressors for the programs under cultural arts and events, but it would be alarming if the art gallery became an hourly rental event center to help pay for the needs of the library, history museum, and other big events. The Art Center building is a 1,300 square foot single room and a kitchenette. It has a capacity of 110 people. We use 80 square feet in the basement to hold all our media, teaching supplies, display, and gallery equipment. There is no other visual arts organization that offers back as much as we do. It is only through our standing as a preferred resident organization with early scheduling, reasonable rent, and the basement storage space that allows us to provide an arts program for Louisville and the surrounding cities. We want to work with you. We want to give back to the city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lisa.
By the way, I'm from Broomfield.
All right.
Step is Jane Evans, followed by Judy Dressler.
Good evening. Hi, Deborah. I'm Jane Evans, past president of the LAA, and we would like your continued support. Lisa has just really covered a lot of things, so I'm going to kind of skip over some of mine. But as you heard, we've been around for over 40 years. I've been here for 48. It started as a group of people who felt our community needed support for art learning and to have quality exhibits to experience. So that's how it all started. It has, I'm proud to say, really accomplished that and more. You know, we talked about national shows, the photography and fine art. It reaches nationwide. And I remember working on some of the sending in of the packages. They were from England and other places too. So we're really known for our national shows. They are a juried in show. So if you don't know what that means, it means that people enter through cafe, which is a big thing that we have to pay for. And the judge looks at all those entries, JPEGs, chooses 100. We get those however they come, and we hang them, we put them all up, and then the judge comes and then looks at them for real, which is exciting. And so then he chooses, or she, best to show or whatever. We're on right now looking at our children's show, which is with the library. And we invite children from 4 to 18 that live in Louisville, Superior, go to the schools, homeschool, to all join in and enter one piece. Last year, first of all, we provide the library provides the space for the art, and we do the reception and stuff. Dana V, students provide music. We have 3 professional artists doing demos, and we have each participant gets a ribbon and a goodie bag where all the supplies for those come from the Louisville Art Group. Last year, we had 181 pieces of art that was hung, and we had 560 people attend a reception that was less than 2 hours long. So it was full. We do an excellent job of learning opportunities for members and offer them also to the public. Monthly demos are done by professional artists and mainly from the Student League of Denver. We also have, as Lisa said, classes that provide an experience like we would get for a graduate level with professional artists. And again, our attendance is really high, and you heard the amount of money that we can raise with that for the community. We are an SEFD nonprofit, and we love our community, and we hope that you will continue to support us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Next up is Judy Dressler, followed by Vince Dean.
Yeah, hi, I'm Judy Dressler. Been a resident of Louisville for 24 years, and I'm a member of the Louisville Art Association. I've been a member for several years, quite a few years now. I'm a photographer, and I participate in the National Photography Show and other member shows. And I just want to say that the organization is very important to me personally. And I know for the shows, like the National Photography Show, there's a lot of equipment down in the basement that we need for these shows. There are huge panels and displays that go up. I think it would be a real hardship to have to move those out. I know there's been discussion about moving, not being allowed to use our space down there. And I think, we have a lot of stuff down there. It would be really difficult. We'd have to truck it in, I guess. I don't know if anybody even has a truck. So that was just a suggestion that maybe we could share the space if there's no other solution, where we could have some of our bigger items in there as opposed to, having to move it all out. So anyway, thank you. I didn't have much to say, just wanted to say that. And thanks very much.
Thank you, Judy.
Next up is Vince Dean, followed by Ari Liggett.
Thank you. I'm Vince Dean, a Louisville resident for quite a few years, a member of the Art Association for perhaps the last 10 years or so. Served on the board for 4 years, and I'm a frequent volunteer and occasionally a student, an aspiring artist who never thought of himself as an artist. So I'm learning a lot. Other people can give you statistics on how many people attended our shows, what benefit that brings to the community, volunteer hours. But I suspect if we total up all those hours, all those efforts, we compare favorably with a lot of organizations in the city. Somebody referred to us back during COVID. They wrote us up and called us a small but mighty Louisville Art Association. And I think we earned it. And we kept going during COVID. So without going into those details, I can just say my personal experience and conclude with my gratitude. I joined the Art Association perhaps 10 years ago, give or take. And it was my wife and I were both immediately drafted to coordinate one of our art shows, knowing nothing about how the organization worked. They said there was a notebook full of details. They never found the notebook. And then I was recruited to serve on the board. I was treasurer for a couple of years and served on the board for a couple more years. And I've taken a number of art classes and enjoyed them. And as I say, I didn't think of myself as an artist. But more importantly, for me personally, this was a big opportunity to be in a service position in the community, to serve, and then to lead as a board member. And most importantly, share community, which is something that can be hard to come by. So a community opportunity like this is a precious thing to have. And we're providing that sort of thing to many, many people, as others have said. And I want to close just by expressing my gratitude that this opportunity has been available to us and that the city chose to provide the wonderful facilities that we enjoy. So the council, others will allocate resources. All I can say is that I am profoundly grateful for what the city has given us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vince.
Next up is it Ani? Thank you, Liggett, followed by Helen Harrison.
Hello, my name is Ani Liggett, and I am a member of the Louisville Art Association Board of Directors, and I live in Lafayette. I am a fine artist in that I paint, I work in oils and I work in the fine art realm. So I appreciate this opportunity to be heard. We all know that finances are important. The city can realize much more profit by renting out space to other groups on an hourly basis. That being said, the Art Center building is taxpayer supported. I hope that council can agree that LAA, with its 40-year history of giving back to Louisville, is exactly the kind of community partner that building was always intended to support. Without LAA, there is no arts community of our caliber in all of Boulder County. So please don't make it difficult for us to exist. Thank you.
Thank you, Ani.
Next up is Helen Harrison, followed by Phyllis Postlethwaite.
Hi, my name's Helen Harrison, and my husband and I have been in Louisville since 2004. And I've been part of the Louisville Art Association since about 2018. I started teaching drawing classes and painting classes at the Senior Center because I feel strongly that as with our mission statement, I feel strongly that our community and people in general have a strong desire to create, to make things, art, crafts, whatever. We just have this innate need for that. And that's a big part of what our organization does. I'm the team leader for our workshop program, and people have mentioned that we have very high caliber workshops, which are open to the public. Members get a discount, but anybody can take classes and workshops. I teach or lead the drawing workshops, which are online and in person. And we had advertise it to our members, but really anyone can come to those. And I encourage anybody to come to those who wants to learn to draw, because that's another fundamental way of expressing yourself. I will say that I am hoping from any of the reorganization or plans that you have that you would consider the Louisville Art Association your partner in working in that space. We're not being selfish, and neither are the other art organizations. We haven't heard a lot from Coal Creek Theater, but they've been offering wonderful programs, new director, and they're really their performances are well attended, although they are small because we don't have a lot of space for them. So I just encourage you to consider us your partners in your planning, and not to have a plan that we have to then come together and agree on, but maybe get together with us, cup of coffee, meet, talk about what we could make happen for that center. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen.
Next up is Phyllis Postlethwaite, followed by Lynn.
Like
Berger.
post office, Postawait. Hi, I'm Phyllis Postawait. I'm a member of the Louisville Art Association, and I'm not a speaker like everybody else, so I'll do my best. About 30 years ago, I was working, and one of my clients said, I have a volunteer opportunity, Phyllis. I would like you to come and help me with this children's art show. I didn't know what she was talking about, but I showed up and there were, oh my God, it's my favorite part of the art association. 4-year-olds, 6-year-olds bringing in their artwork. They will tell you a story about what they have done. I continue to work at that. It is amazing. They have to show their grandma, their neighbor, and it is heartwarming. I felt when I first heard about this that we were going to look at a balance sheet and say, with dollars, how does the Louisville Art Association contribute to the community of Louisville? It is part of our heart. It provides a showcase, a gathering place for children, for seniors. It is socialization. It is community. And if you need something, there is someone in the Art Association that will step up and help you. And it's not just about art. That's our focus, but it is part of this community. And I cannot stress enough what it has meant to me and to all of my friends there. This is just a tiny showing of the people that you see. But I do just have one comment, and I don't know if this is the place to say it, but when they were listing the events under arts and events, I didn't see our events. I didn't see the numbers of the museum had 6,422,000 and we had over 5,000. I didn't see that up there anywhere. And I feel like we've done a lot for the community, we've done a lot for Louisville, and we want to continue working with you, continue contributing to this great community. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis.
Next up is Lynn Berggren, followed by Dorothy Weiner.
Hello, I'm Lynn Berggren, and I've lived in Louisville for 32 years this month. I'm kind of going off of the art thing, talking a little bit about my own personal selfish reasons for liking the LAA and wanting it to stay here in Louisville. When I first moved here, I was raising two boys. We moved from Seattle. I was really feeling like a fish out of water, like a little bit of culture shock. And the city events, and in particular, the National Fine Arts Show and the photography show, enabled me to bring my boys through and really expose them, that they're real like math, science, geeks. But they got that exposure to the art. I had no clue who was putting this on for decades. And one of my sons actually, I think somebody mentioned that film is a visual art and, with Sundance coming up. And that's so true. He actually got really, kept up with the art. They both signed up for art classes in high school. And, they're not artists now, but he did get really into film and actually published reviews. That was one of his first endeavors. And then went on to work for be a financial analyst for a media company at some point. So, there's things that have nothing to do with the art per se that I've really benefited from. About 10 years ago, I was really in an abusive job situation and I really needed to get out. And I got out of the job and was kind of a little bit lost. I could have really been just gone into my little hole and stayed with only the people I knew and people like me. And I didn't, and it was because of LAA. I met up with an artist that was a member of LAA, and they said, hey, come to LAA, and pulled me in. And I just met one nice person after another. It just really uplifted me from a not a good place and was so positive, and everybody that I encountered with LAA was positive. And so I just got more and more involved. I went to workshops. I learned how to paint. I wasn't in any art field before. It wasn't an art related field. And I volunteered. I got on the board. I started volunteering, and it is like my community here. So I really get worried when I hear that maybe, this could be impacted and go away. So I wanted everybody to think about, the things that aren't art related that are connected with community that we have. Thanks.
Thank you, Lynn.
Next up is Dorothy Weiner, followed by Anna Dale Sullivan.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name's Dorothy Weiner. I'm a past board member of LAA, and forgive me for reading from this script, but I think it will be more concise this way. When I moved to Colorado 5 years ago, I joined every arts organization: Open Studios, Plein Air Artists of Colorado, North Boulder County Arts Association, Longmont Art Guild, Boulder Art Association, and LAA. It didn't take long to see which one was the best. LAA offered monthly programs and regular affordable workshops, all in its own historic building. So when I came up with the idea for a unique art donation program called Paintings for Nonprofits, I wasn't comfortable entrusting it to any other art group but LAA. That is in part because LAA has the organization and the physical facility in which to collect and distribute nearly 100 donated paintings every December. If you are not familiar with this LAA charity, our members donate wall-ready artwork to 6 or 7 chosen nonprofits for them to beautify their spaces and enrich the lives of those they serve. This has included such worthy causes as Sister Carmen Center, Veterans Community Project, True Community Care Hospice, Boulder Shelter for the Homeless, and Safe House Alliance. This program is a win-win-win. That third win is because it brings accolades to LAA as a giving organization, and I might add to Louisville as a city. That brings me to my serious objections over being edged out of our longtime home on Grant Avenue. As a former board member, I have been privy to some of the ins and outs of this negotiation process. It has been going on for a long time now. I firmly believe having a true home base is one of the things that sets LAA apart and accounts for our amazing success of 240 plus members. A real physical home allows us to offer regular programming, such as high-quality workshops at very reasonable prices that are accessible to all. If we raised our fees to meet the city's rack rate of $40 to $60 an hour, many in our group of mostly seniors just couldn't afford it. I know the council has offered alternatives to the Grant Avenue space, but I believe these will ultimately lead to the diminishment of our organization. It will splinter our programming and weaken our foundation. Plus, there is absolutely no guarantee that once we schedule meetings at the library, say, in 2027, they will not eject us possibly in 2028 due to their own scheduling conflicts. The library is the library, not an art center. As for workshops, the tall windows and early century atmosphere of our Grant Avenue home is the ideal environment, warts and all. I urge the council to reconsider its position. At the recent ward meeting, a resident mentioned Louisville having to decide between values and
Dorothy?
profits. Yes.
Apologize, your
Yes.
3 minutes are up.
Oh, well, may I? Okay. Anyway, they mentioned Louisville having to decide between values and profits. With LAA remaining in its home, you can have both. Our 4 annual art shows bring in thousands of visitors and revenue, and our reputation as the preeminent arts organization here underscores Louisville's cultural values. If you're not convinced, maybe the resident voters can decide. Thank you. That's all.
Thanks, Dorothy. And can we get your name for who donated their 3 minutes? Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Next up is Kim Robers, followed by Susan Hans.
Did Anna? Oh, wait, so you're Anna. You were actually next. That's funny. Okay, I missed that. That's perfect. Okay, so sorry, who's up?
This gentleman right here.
Okay.
Ken.
Hi, my name is Ken Roberge. I'm a citizen of Louisville, very proud to be here. And I'm a former board member of the Louisville Art Association. I want to start by saying thank you very much to the city because I understand how much support the city has given this organization over the years in allowing us to use the Art Center. And at times we use the library for our board meetings. And so this is not an issue about the city itself as much as it is about a particular policy change that is in the offing. When the LAA board was updating its mission statement, I researched many other art associations in cities across the country. What I found was that the association was unique in its mission to create not just a community of artists, which is what most of the art associations do, but to create a thriving art community for its citizens. And the citizens' focus and the community focus of this organization makes it really unique among art associations all over the country. Its mission, as you heard earlier, is to improve the skills of artists and art lovers at every level and to bring the best of everyone's art to the community through its shows and public exhibitions. It is truly unique. Now I'm going to change from my art lover's hat to my economist hat. Visual arts have been a part of the human existence since prehistoric times. All people in our community benefit from the work of this association, whether or not they directly pay for it. This makes the work of the association what economists call a public good. And therefore, it is entirely justified and worthy to have government support for this kind of a public good. And I think that support is minimal in terms of the policy changes that we're talking about. A few hundred square feet of storage space near the location where most of this public good is created, and a small amount of rental revenue lost by giving the association or by giving other people priority over the association. And so, you know, we lose a little bit in terms of other revenue at the expense of us. I ask you to consider that these costs are quite reasonable in light of the community service provided by this organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken.
Next up is Susan Hanstein, followed by Sheila Fossen.
Good evening. My name is Susan Hanstein. I live at 727 Pine Street. I'm a 27, almost 28-year resident of Louisville, and I have been a member of LA for most of that time. I'm a past board member. I'm also past chair of the Louisville Cultural Council. I have been in the past before council many times pleading for support for the arts. No surprise. And I am thrilled to see that we now have some focal point for that in the city, which we did not have before. But I'm here to reiterate that the Louisville Art Association and also Coal Creek Theater, who is not, it appears, in attendance tonight. I think they're going through some transitions right now, but these are volunteer organizations that have given a tremendous benefit to this community over these years in the form of programming, which, as your staff member said, is not possible to do with a skeletal staff. And I think that I had remarks that have already been said by many others. What I would say is I think it's important to acknowledge the Art Association, to partner with the Art Association as opposed to treating it as an other, to have our numbers up there reflecting what we are giving to this community. We are giving programming, but we are also building community. I think Phyllis or somebody said, this organization has enabled me to integrate into friends and neighbors in this community and to become a part. I grew up in a very small town, smaller than Louisville, and it has enabled me to feel a deep connection throughout the community through workshops I've taken with others, through events that I've invited friends and family to. It really is part of the fabric of this community. And I think it's really incumbent, welcome to new staff, but I think it's incumbent on our new staff to really learn who we are, what we do, and how we can be a partner and go forward together and not make changes that undermine the viability of a 100% volunteer organization, more or less propped up by a bunch of old people. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Susan.
Next up is Sheila Fossen, followed by Dom Parcher.
Hi, I am not a Louisville resident. I live in Thornton, but I would like you to know that Louisville is well known because of the Art Association and because of the shows that we do. I'm a former president and board member and I've been a member for probably 12 years. I just hear about Louisville Art Association from all over in comparison to other art associations. I was a coordinator for our National Fine Arts Show this last year, 2025, and David Mayer, who also lives in town and has his art gallery here, he he was our judge for our last National Fine Arts Show. And he said at the end, have always been, and I am so impressed with Louisville Art Association. You have the most classes, you offer the most classes. He says, I've judged and shown my work in Santa Fe, in Boulder, and he mentioned many other communities. And he said, this organization has the most volunteers, the most classes, and just has quality art. And so I think besides being here and wonderful for your own community, you're known outside. Thanks.
Thank you, Sheila.
Next up is Don Parcher.
Good evening, Don Parcher, almost 12 years in Louisville. And I want to thank the city for approving my request for a grant for under the Community Event Sponsorship Program. So $300 and support from the city. Iris and JR have, I've met with them. They've been very supportive and others have been supportive. So the plan is for a Louisville spring get together, hopefully May 16th, hopefully Memory Square Park. It'd be that afternoon after the farmer's market ends, partly because I don't want to interfere with the farmer's market. And I don't intend for anything to be for sale at this event. We might have a couple of food trucks, Sweet Cow maybe. But the idea is to help neighbors connect. We have so many great events and facilities in Louisville, but if you think about it, there aren't hardly any that residents really have a chance to connect. So I'm trying to help residents connect with at least two of their neighbors with phone numbers. So I'll have activities for that, but also I want to enable residents connect with other things, resources, information, people that can help them, people they can talk to about their issues and concerns, but also arts. And I support the Arts Association. And in fact, hopefully we'll have some participation from the LAA and maybe have the Art Center open during the event, but also volunteer opportunities, history, nature, animals, kind of you name it, connecting with all those good things. So, and also help businesses, even though I don't want anything to be for sale, I would like to find ways to promote businesses. I've talked to the Chamber of Commerce and we can have maybe discount coupons from businesses or activities that they could provide for the event. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Don. Okay, that is the end of public comment. Thank you all so much, for being here tonight and engaging, and then obviously for the immense amount of time and effort that you all put into the community. You may or may not know, but my home is 2 doors down from the art center. So I enjoy the traffic, the parking whenever it's there. It's like, oh, fun. Something is taking over the whole community. I love it. It's like, there's something great. I just wish there was like a digital board that would tell us what's happening that night. I'm just saying that'd be a cool idea. Again, thank you for all those comments. As I said at the beginning, we're not having, an in-depth, this would normally be over an hour ago, right? And we would kind of get the report, but your comments are so important. We want to hear them and understand them, and how it influences decisions in the future. But just want to be fair with our agenda tonight. We have a big next agenda with our work plan, but certainly this conversation about the Art Center and this amazing organization that we have is something that's really important to us. So thank you for taking your time. And I also want to thank you for really changing up the messages. I really kind of got something new from every speaker. So I appreciate the efforts you put into giving us some unique information with each speaker. With that, are there any other comments or questions about the entire presentation or public comment that we heard that we'd like to? I want to give you guys space for additional comments. Yeah, Dietrich.
I just briefly want to say thank you all for coming. It's really important for us to hear from you. I've served on the boards of various arts associations over the years and know how difficult it can be, especially when you're in somebody else's space. So really appreciate your being here.
If it makes sense to council, maybe we'll take a 5-minute break between these two, let everybody clear out, reset. But we won't take a break at 8 for the bathroom. Okay, so a little 5-minute break. We'll be back at 7:40. Hey, Chris, are you still with us? Obviously, your video's off, which is fine, but checking to see if you're still hanging in. There you are.
What?
Or maybe not. Yep. All right, great.
Oh.
How you feeling? We're about to get started. Well, you're muted, so I'll assume you're feeling.
I'm not feeling all that great, but I am gonna hang in there as long as I can.
All right, cool. We'll keep looking for your hand. It is fun. Okay, well, welcome back. We are back from break. And so the next item on our agenda is the 2026 Council Work Plan Review. And so we'll start with a staff presentation.
All right, thank you. So I just want to acknowledge Sama, who's participating virtually tonight. She prepared this presentation. You were going to have her tonight. You have me instead. And so the purpose is to discuss the 2026 Council Work Plan. So we're trying to refine the 2026 Council Work Plan. It reflects Council's related work only and is above and beyond the day-to-day services. It should be achievable and should maintain alignment with the resident survey, comprehensive plan, and 2026 budget. For tonight, we want to review and refine the work plan. You have some items that were identified as priority items, and then there's some decision points that we have for additional items that have been added over the last few months. Last May, we met and reviewed progress on the 2025 Council Work Plan. You confirmed continuing the priorities and the lenses. And then you also identified adjustment to priorities if needed. If you remember last July, as part of the budget presentation, the directors each did a presentation for you related to their department and challenges and opportunities. And then staff used council direction to draft the work plan. With this, you will review, provide feedback, and then adopt the plan. The reason that we wanted to have this discussion tonight, we have an upcoming February 10th workshop with the ELT. We wanted to be able to refine what council wants to include in this work plan so that at the February 10th meeting, each director can discuss capacity issues that they have or capacity challenges that they might have or capacity opportunities that they have so that as we then narrow down the final work plan recommendation, you have an understanding of what may be required to be able to support the work plan. Here's a brief timeline that shows going back to last May and then looking ahead. We are proposing to bring this forward on February 24th as we go to the next agenda item on our agenda tonight and talk about upcoming agenda items. The next couple of months for the council agendas are packed. And so we thought it best to put it on the February 24th agenda. We do have another item that night, but if you look at the agendas before and after that, it's very extensive. So just some considerations, just a reminder, this is not representative of everything that the city does. Consider the presentations from the directors in July and then again on February 10th. Consider the level of effort, time, and energy in each item. And then it's not representative of internal initiatives such as organizational development, cultural strategy work, and then the day-to-day services. So this is for Sama. This is a slide that I know has been given to council in the past in terms of the council and staff work flight analogy. And just in terms of council's role, longer range planning, you have a much greater role than you do in the day-to-day implementation of these items. And as we move forward, a lot of the items are policy driven, although some of the items get more into the specific projects. So the draft plan is in the packet, and the procedure that we want to follow tonight, like I said, first confirm the proposed items, and then second, we will get into that decision point list. So for the proposed items, so economic vitality, we have the comprehensive plan, front and center, the downtown vision project, EVC policy recommendations, targeted development code and process amendments, development code rewrite, Sundance Film Festival, and McCaslin corridor. So we're looking for confirmation that you would like to continue with these, that you're okay with these proposed items related to economic vitality.
Right. And so I think, the hope tonight is kind of, we don't have the time or need to necessarily dive deep into any individual topic. So it's mostly kind of like, if there is something on these lists, these are things that we're planning on doing. So if there's a problem, we can talk about it. If it's something you're excited about, we don't need to dig into it. But if there's anything on this list that you feel we shouldn't be doing, is kind of what we talk about. So I will keep
Yes.
looking to Chris, but otherwise, does anyone have any comments on economic vitality and this list? Go ahead, Judy.
Thank you. So I was just curious because there's other proposed, so
Yeah.
you'll get to
So
that.
we're
This
going to
is-
do the items that are the priority items that have been identified by council on the work plan. And then the next phase of this will be getting into the actual decision points and going through all of the additional proposed items that we need to determine whether or not they're going to be added.
Okay, I just was confused because it says proposed items and I went, I don't think that.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I just thought I would make sure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Josh?
Just wanted to preface my comments. So in throughout all four overarching topics, I feel like there's some places where there are some omissions of projects that are actually ongoing or in progress, but just aren't explicitly listed. And I'll mention those in a couple of those in a moment. And then I also feel like some of the things that are listed don't have the sort of specificity that I would like to see. So maybe I'll try to illustrate those right now. So like the last one, McCaslin Corridor, I like that it's there. There's some things that I'd be very much interested in looking into. But when you look at what's in the other columns on the work plan, it's very vague. And so, my concern is that while there's interest in looking at things having to do with the corridor, if those are not well enough defined at the moment to be listed in some form, then, are they really going to be well enough defined in the next year for us to actually do anything? So that's my main concern about specificity. And it'll come up in some other places too. And then in terms of emissions, like we're going to do that impact fee study, and I would have thought this falls under economic vitality. I don't think it's anywhere else explicitly listed on the work plan. And that seems like a big enough deal that it should be listed explicitly.
Okay. So related to specifically the McCaslin corridor, if you recall, this is a document. This doesn't mean that these items are necessarily completed in 2026. These could be long-range planning items. And what we've consistently heard from, at least I've heard from council, is a desire to activities that activate the McCaslin corridor. And so the specificity, we don't have those details yet as to what that could be, but that would be working like with cultural services in terms of what are some events, or working with economic vitality related to what are some things that we can do, either programming or projects to try to reinvigorate the McCaslin corridor. So the specificity may not exist yet, but that's part of, if council wants to put this as a item on here, then we would know that we are dedicating resources to over 2026 evaluate what some of those things could be. And then we might be bringing forward specific ideas to council in 2027 or 2028 for things that we could implement. In terms of the impact fee program, it's already, the impact fee update, it's already budgeted. It's not that it's not going to be completed or started this year. And so, one of the other things, if we took every project that we're working on and tried to put it under the different categories, we could do that. But we're also looking at initiatives that, as we're planning ahead, what are some things that maybe aren't currently on the table that we do need to put resources towards? So, open to suggestions if you want us to specifically list the impact fee update. We certainly can. That would fall under, I think, a variety of topics on this work plan. But this is the kind of input that we're looking for as we go to finalize this plan.
I just feel like, I don't know. I guess my feeling is that if council expects to spend time on something during the year, like the impact fee study, then it should be explicitly listed. And the other thing I would say, like with the McCaslin corridor, like, I mean, I'd be happy if the specificity is kind of exactly what you said, like council would like staff to think about, reinvigoration, and like that might be enough.
It currently says revitalization initiatives related to the McCaslin corridor.
Yeah, I know. What am I trying to say? Like, I don't know. So at the moment, it doesn't feel like well, the way you describe it, it doesn't feel like, it feels like an instance where we're giving staff direction, but it's not necessarily, I mean, maybe eventually, but it's not necessarily something we're going to actually do during the year. That one, I don't know. That one's a little borderline, but.
Deb?
Thanks. Yeah, on the McCaslin revitalization, we do have in here under economic vitality, McCaslin Revitalization Task Force that would then subpoint guide how recent and upcoming developments will help to revitalize the McCaslin corridor. So we do want to get this group together to look into it and see what can we do, what should we do, how can we do it, and then we'll say, okay, let's do that. So I think that is as far as we can get in this very high level place.
Yeah. I would also like to know that the evaluate and update impact fees that is on this decision points list that we have coming up in the next phase of the discussion. We have it under a priority area of core services scheduled for council because it will come before council, and then covered in a current initiative because it is already planned for 2026 and is a subsequent step after completion of the comp plan and the PROS plan. And so it's definitely on staff's radar. And so it's a matter of whether or not council wants us to specifically list it in the different activities associated with all of these items. So we can have that discussion in this next item.
Great. Mayor, see your hand went up and down. So I will keep watching it if you need it. And yeah, my only comment, I think some of like, yeah, I think the point you're making is on this first slide, you're trying to make a point of what you're kind of noticing through the entirety of it is, do we need more specificity or not? Is this, direction enough? If there's an omission, is it not going to be done? Like, so I know you're not intending to look at every item with the same thing, but more the example. But yeah, I mean, I sort of like in this bullet point, I see Sundance Film Festival, then I can read this thing and read more, and then I can read another thing and read more. And then there's the other. So it's like, there's a lot to each bullet point. But what I'm hearing, at least for this first slide, is there's nothing that we want to take off. These are all things that we are excited about staff working on in some way, shape, or form this year. Yeah, Judy.
Yeah, I agree. And, I think we're probably going to end up having maybe some greater discussions around other things related to Sundance, things that are, I think in the proposed one you were telling us about the yellow versus the blue sheets. So one of the things I just kind of wanted to bring up to all of you is see how you felt. We just recently had kind of an update, if you will, on what's happening with Front and Center. And one of my takeaways was I really would have loved to have been able to hear from other council members. So it would, like, as far as like understanding what your thoughts are, what your opinions were, where we want to go, that kind of, rather than it being like a more limited kind of just look and see thing. And I noticed that we allocated just essentially like one conversation, maybe a second one to talk about the allocation of funds. I was hoping to see how receptive we were to maybe increasing that by an additional meeting to have a greater discussion around this before the project gets so far into the design phase that there is no valuable, meaningful input that we can really make to the project.
Yes, so we are planning to schedule a joint LRC City Council workshop so that as a combined body, you can evaluate and provide input on the 30% plans for the front and center project. And then that way, moving forward, we have LRC and City Council on the same page in terms of what we're ultimately designing as we move into the next phase of effort.
Okay, so that would be like in addition to kind of what's
Yeah.
sitting on here. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's important, this is kind of a guess in terms of the council action. No way is it 100% accurate. And as we've just seen on the agenda forecast, things are moving so quickly. And, things also pop up that we can't predict that requires staff and council input. And so it's a very dynamic situation. I will also note that the front end of 2026 is heavily loaded. But when I look at this, the entire year is heavily loaded. And that's why we want the opportunity for the directors to be able to give you from their perspective, how manageable these items are. Because there's some really heavy lifts in this work plan. And as much as we would like to say we can do it all, we can do it all if, and that's the big thing, right? Or, there needs to be some modification.
Great. So we'll move on. And one suggestion I have for all of you is that if you have any interest in adding things, that you're maybe looking at these lists as we go and what you would get rid of, right? Because you can't add stuff without getting rid of stuff. So, as we're saying, yeah, this is all great, maybe just looking at what you would scratch if you had to. But go ahead to the next one.
All right, thank you. The next one is core services. So this is the list of proposed items. Again, not all encompassing in terms of what staff's working on, but we have the pros long range plan and trails plan. The website update is going to kick off soon. We have an implementation target of July. The wastewater treatment plant expansion related to the not only Red Tail Ridge, but it also benefits the city as well. Transportation infrastructure. There's a lot happening within transportation infrastructure right now. Advocacy, the 2027-28 budget and CIP, Excel franchise agreement extension, core services. One of the things that we'd kind of like to get away from this concept of core services and focus more on quality of life services. Because if you go to other cities, core services are typically police, fire, roads, and utilities. In Louisville, core services include cultural services, parks, open space, all of those things that make Louisville unique. And so from a staff perspective, we're shifting to terminology of quality of life services. For this purpose, we will keep it core services. There's a lot of strategic planning efforts within departments. We're talking about extending the historic preservation tax, replacing that on the 2026 ballot. A lot of parks and open space initiatives from, trying to acquire to also trying to manage and then tearing off the pros long range plan for a management plan. Environmental sustainability initiatives, and then you just got the update from Brandy related to cultural services. So from a council perspective, is there anything that you would want to modify? And I see the mayor has his hand raised.
Great. Let's start there, Mayor.
Yeah, I just had a question on the, on the slide. Environmental sustainability and issues. What's included in that more specifically?
Yeah, if you go to the yellow decision point sheet, which we can get into in a minute, There
Yeah.
are a lot of items that will be considered as part of the preparation of the Sustainability Action Plan. So some of those things include the citywide educational campaign on electrification, the universal recycling ordinance. So that sustainability action plan will evaluate a lot of these different initiatives. And so that's why this is kind of the all-encompassing topic, but there's a lot that falls within that.
Got it. Thanks.
Great. Josh?
Just to follow up on that, if it's appropriate. So some of those ideas are mine that I suggested for possible work plan items. And, in part, I'm interested in knowing whether, there's staff capacity for pursuing some of those ideas, some of which could be really, I think, staff driven if there's support for them, and others which are more policy kind of questions. So I don't know when exactly is the right time to talk about those, or if we want to wait until we get to the longer list, that's fine too.
Yeah, I think for now, and core service is probably a bad example of like, what would you like to take off? These are things that we're probably, again, reminder, this is pretty well baked, right? We've been working on this for a really long time, so none of these things should be surprises. But is there anything on here that now in January 2026, we're like, I don't think that's really a priority for us anymore. So you can argue that, but otherwise.
That comment brings to mind, could, instead of calling it core services, could we call it priority services?
So on that list, Dan, help me understand, like you're kind of using the bullet point core services to represent police, fire, sewage.
No. So for Louisville, core services expands beyond the police, fire,
Okay, but
road.
that core services is what we typically call core
Yes.
services.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of those things.
I just know people get offended if they don't see something specific to their department or their interest under this specific topic. And then they think that, oh, we don't think that they're a core service. And so that's why, from staff perspective, we're focusing more on quality of life services because it covers the wide range of all of these items. And then people don't necessarily feel offended by, oh, you don't consider me a core service because I'm not listed here. So.
Okay. Yeah, Judy.
So basically you're saying like change from so core service would be a subset under the quality of life services.
It could. But I could also argue that, the other topics related to safety and these other topics are also quality of life service. I think it's fine to leave it core services. We all just recognize that in Louisville, core services covers a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Josh.
Just a comment. I mean, my impression was that particular bullet point was there because I think staff especially wants to have a conversation about the levels at which we provide services. And that, because the whole slide is core services, right? And so that I think, that particular bullet point was meant to represent, us giving input on those kinds of questions. Anyway, and I had a question about the Excel franchise agreement. Do we know about the timing of that? Like, is that something we need to have done in early 2027 or before 2027? Or do we know that or not really?
I don't know that. I have a copy of the current agreement. I haven't looked to see when the actual expiration date is, but we do that. I can follow up on that.
Okay. And just one little thing I was, well, maybe depending on the answer to that question, I was wondering about in the description for that item, which we certainly have to take care of, do we want to say anything about, thinking about possible resilience or sustainability kinds of measures or requests that, might interface with Excel. I mean, it could also be implicit.
Yeah, I think that for staff, one of the things that we'll do is evaluate other Excel agreements with other agencies to see what they've been able to accomplish. And then that would be a discussion item with council in terms of how do you want to approach this franchise agreement extension.
Okay, next slide.
All right, the next is safety. And so we have building the foundation for study sessions. It says building the foundation. We have preparedness, ODM buy-in and implementation, cell coverage, and traffic safety.
Okay, so is there anything on this list that we need to talk about? Are we happy with this list of 5 items in the safety category? Great. I think we're good. Next slide. Oh, sorry. I don't. No, I looked at you like 3 times. Do you have your hand up or not?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I'm fine with the 5. Like, I felt a little bit like this is another place where there are omissions and also specificity that would be nice. So like under preparedness, like we don't explicitly state that we're talking about wild and urban interface codes or defensible space, at least not as explicitly as I would expect, since those things are on our work plan. We have plans to do them. And then like, I mean, under traffic safety, for instance, I don't know. I would like to see some specific things there, but maybe we can talk about that coming up. That's all.
Yeah, but in general, you do want us to work on preparedness and traffic safety. Okay.
Okay. Last item. So housing policy. So potential city initiated rezoning, potential property acquisition or project contribution for the creation of affordable housing, Prop 123 compliance, development, housing plan, and affordable housing strategic framework and funding prioritization.
Yeah. I mean,
And development is related to building permit process for affordable housing.
yeah, Dietrich.
And I'd be interested in what other people have to say. It seems to me there's a case for trying to roll in the rezoning and development items into the code rewrite, and rather than do it once and then do it again in the code rewrite. I think the intention there was to try and make some early progress, because we know the development code rewrite is going to take a long time. But if we're looking for things to sort of pare back on, that might be a way to make some space.
Yeah.
And I see Director Zucchero. I can't tell if he's sticking his head up back there or not.
I would just say whether it stays on the work plan officially or not, we're working on that item, and we'll hope to bring something to you outside of the land development code rewrite.
Okay.
To implement the comp plan.
So what I'm hearing from you is that's not a good idea.
Like whether it's on the work plan
Whether
or
it's,
not,
it's on the work plan or not.
We're doing it anyway.
We're doing it anyways, and I think there's been a lot of council direction requesting that.
So I withdraw my comment.
Yeah.
No, and I appreciate both your comment, but like the development code rewrite's going to take 2 years, and so I don't think anyone is like excited for a 2-year delay on some of these issues. So it is interesting that we have, it feels repetitive, but as you read each bullet point, like they are different. So affordable housing is in the housing plan, and development is in affordable housing, and Prop 123 is like, so there's a lot there, but this is the housing policy, right? And so more specifically, there are different things that are going to get us there. So I appreciate all these, and I think they are in a lot of intertwining ways, but anything in particular that we want to, as we say, kill or combine, but we're good.
It's good.
Josh?
Yeah, I would like, again, I'd like to see the sort of preliminary updates to the inclusionary housing ordinance. Either, it could just fall under one of those categories, but just sort of explicitly called out. That's all.
Dinah, Rob, do you have is that maybe best in the development or in the housing plan or affordable housing strategy? I don't think it works in Prop 123. Is it embedded in any of those?
It isn't necessarily embedded. So again, it is something that staff has been working on, and we intend to bring. So there would be interim updates and then more comprehensive updates with the full land development code rewrite. So again, if you wanted to add it, I think the housing section would be the right place to add it.
Okay, is that fair, Dana? Adding that to the housing section. Okay.
Okay, so we've gone through that. Thank you. Other general discussion items. So we're changing the format a little bit. We're going to move the transportation plan to the overarching guiding documents. We're adding timing information in terms of when we anticipate it coming before council. We're also adding a column to include board, commission, council, committee connections so that you know if it's going to go before an advisory board or one of the council committees. We're adding council leads. And then we're also combining and or adding references for potential overlapping items because some of these items fall under multiple categories.
What are council leads?
So like for say if it's an item that maybe there's a council member, it's in the realm of a council member committee assignment or something like that where you would know that like for instance with you, if it's something related to a Dr. Cog item or something like that, that you're the lead on that type of item.
Okay. It's probably just just the first we've heard of it, seen of it, talked about it. So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
I see the mayor's raised his hand.
Great, Mayor.
Yeah, I mean, this one was one that I suggested, so I can kind of put some meat on the bones. I think there are some items in the work plan where I think it's anticipated that some of the work will get done, at least in a very preliminary way, in, for example, the EVC, or we'll spend some, deep dive time there, or some of them will require some more deep dive by finance. And so there's that I think could be, it could be helpful to insert those where appropriate. I mean, some of them are kind of committees of the whole. We're not going to have any, council committee being kind of the lead. But I think Judy, one might be, we're going to be doing some work on EVC on Sundance issues, and that would be, I think, one place that you have kind of a council lead. It's just something that suggests a little more, a little more deep diving and providing some recommendations to tee up to council to make the really important decisions.
Great. Yeah, I think I'm really curious to see, how that plays out, or like, does every single item have a council lead,
No.
or, is it, so I think I'll be interested to see how that's implemented. I think on its face, it could be very interesting and useful to kind of call out if someone is going to maybe work on it more than others. But I think, obviously council of seven and
Right.
we have committees and other things. So it doesn't sound at all like it's like, okay, Judy, you're in charge of affordable housing. Like, that's not the idea. There's like, so just hoping to better understand like what we do with that information, right? When my name's on an item, what does that actually mean? Am I expected to do more work or meet with people or be in the public about it? Or like, what's the hope there? What's the design? Because I think it's certainly interesting. Judy.
I think so. I just to kind of play on this, we're already looking, we've done a few We've talked about potentially the need for more task forces. So there's pairs versus individual council leads. I think I feel a little bit more comfortable if we're going to identify the committee or the task force. I'm not comfortable with individual council members' names associated with full council level work plan items.
Mayor?
Yeah, I don't think that's the idea. I think Caleb mentioned something like that, or maybe the city manager did. These would all be at most council committee leads. That is, groups of council members, not single council members. I think you're right, Judy, that would just be kind of that would not be helpful. And there may be some of these that end up later on might go to a task force. I don't think we need to figure that out right now. But there are a number of them, and maybe it would make some sense. I just don't have. There's one note that I did not bring with me that had, those listed. I think there's some listed. Actually, I shouldn't say that. There's some listed on, I think on the document even now, but I can give you maybe a couple of examples, right? Well, I gave you one example, which is,
And Chris, just so you know, Sama also has her hand up, so she might be
oh yeah,
looking
yeah.
for an assist.
That would be, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead, Sama.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, y'all. I'm under the
Oh,
weather.
geez, Sama.
Oh,
Oh, Sama, sorry. We'll let you talk, but oh, goodness.
No, the intention was, just as you all are saying, to highlight those task forces or council committees that might be also working on a subject.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you. That's much more clarifying.
It's not exclusive, it's inclusive. It's just it's not designed to try to take that away from council. It's to try to make it a little bit more efficient, because that's the likely nest for that particular item.
Great. Sam, your hand is still up, so if you want to put it down and back up, I'll know you want to talk again. But just down, I'll assume you don't. Okay. So these six, oh, it's gone. Oh, no, it's fine. So those 6 bullet points all made sense to me. I'll be curious to see how they play out when we see them. But I think, yeah, what we were just talking about, like showing which ones are sort of interconnected to something else. It's good if we want to move on to this, but yeah, I thought that slide was good. Any issues with stuff on there?
I'm good. So we're about to get into decision points, which are some of the newly proposed items. Is that correct, Diana?
Correct.
So since we were just on a kind of a discussion thing, may I just add one comment on my thoughts on this? You made a comment before that, like, if we're going to be adding something, we should be looking at what comes off. And I really just wanted to kind of emphasize because I came into this meeting thinking that we've got a good work plan. This past Monday, Diana sent us all a meeting list. It was her notes for the meetings we were going to have with her with the wards. It was incredibly extensive. So I wanted to bring that up as a group with all of you and reference that as this is how much work the staff is working on for a 1-week meeting. And even though we might not be fully because this is a council work plan, but we have to remember that there are people who implement the things that we ask for. And so I just wanted to kind of put it out there that there are a lot of things that come up throughout the year, and we're a council that seems to really like to have the ability to ask things, that come up with staff, whether that's a resident request or something that we see that we need. My concern is when we're putting together a work plan that's tasking them at 110%, they're always juggling. if we can find a way to create a work plan that is maybe at 85 or 95%, so that there is still some wiggle room for us to be able to ask of something. So just recently, for example, we had a super last minute request. Could staff work on something really quickly for us? And I think understanding that they're already working at 100% capacity or 110, we need to be cognizant of how much time can go into something that's needed to be turned over to us in like 2 weeks, for example. So I really would like for us to keep that in the back of our mind, that adding things, I completely agree. Some of them have been recommendations or discussions with staff already. But I'm really hoping that in February, when we're hearing from the executive leadership team, that we've not put too much of this there without taking something away. Thanks.
Yeah, and my understanding, Dan, is that the process, like we go from here to an ELT meeting where they will hopefully give us some of that information too, of like, no, that won't, that our capacity isn't going to work there. So, Dana, do you want to walk us through what's
Sure.
your, they're white and then they're yellow.
Right.
And
So
so is your intention to talk about each of them or just the yellow ones?
my intention is to talk about the shaded ones. We went through all of the requests. So this includes requests from council members. So the source says council member, but you'll also note in some locations it notes an advisory board. And so these are requests that have been received over the last few months through a variety of sources. We tried to put them in the relevant priority area. And then we have 4 different columns scheduled for council. So items that are already scheduled for council consideration, covered in a current initiative, included in the budget process, or include in the budget process. So some of these items are going to require funding, like positions. And so we would say that should be something that's included as part of the budget process for council to consider as part of the entirety review of the proposed budget. And then we have the direction sought. So these were items that don't necessarily fit into an current initiative or necessarily through the budget process. And so we're looking for specific direction from these items. So jumping right into that. So economic vitality, I'll just use this one as an example because it's just 2 items. So festival lodging licenses is already scheduled to come to council at the end of March. It went to EBC. EBC's recommendation was to bring it to the full council for consideration. And so we noted it's scheduled for council and already covered in a current initiative. And so the question would be, do you want this specifically listed in the work plan under economic vitality, or just understand that it's already a current initiative that's taking place? The next item is reconsideration of local minimum wages. This is one that councils had previous discussions, but we need direction as to whether or not you want to add this to the work plan.
Great. So thank you very much for that explanation. So the way I'm reading it now after that explanation is neat. These are things that people have come to you and said, this should be in our work plan. And just to be like blunt, like, yeah, it is. Like, it is. It's either coming before, like, so the first 3 columns are you confirming, like, thank you for your request, but it's already coming. Don't worry about it. But if we want to elevate it, we can. But the real ones are these yellow ones where, like, nah, not so much. It may not be. And so we're going to skip to the yellow ones.
Right. And even if we go down to the core services, all these items that could be covered under the Sustainability Action Plan, that plan is to be developed. And so recognizing that there's a desire to consider these items, staff would take that into consideration when developing the plan. So, if there's something on here that you think, well, we really aren't interested in that from just a city perspective, that's helpful information too.
Great. So would it make sense then for comments on the first page, well, everything in core services? And so what I'm hearing, Dan, is, well, actually that goes all the way.
Vitality first.
Oh yeah, okay, my bad. Can we do economic vitality first? Is that, you ready to comment on that one? Okay, got it. Go, Josh.
Great. My preference would be for festival lodging licenses, like to to be explicitly listed in one of those columns under like EBC initiatives. That would just be my personal preference. I'm the one who put on the reconsideration of local minimum wages. As I understand, City of Boulder, County of Boulder County, Lafayette, and Longmont are going to engage in some discussions around this. I think what I'm most interested in is just kind of staying tuned in to their discussions, and I believe that SAMA is doing that, and so that's good enough for me, just to kind of stay aware of what's going on with regional discussions.
Yeah, I would concur that, you know, if a sort of regional decision is being made and we're not aware of it, that would be a miss, right? And so this might be in some ways thrust upon us, like it's not on our work plan. But yes, if all of our neighbors, let's say just include Superior and Broomfield for a second, if all of our neighbors are doing something and we weren't considering it, I think that would be a miss, but it's not necessarily on our plan. That is something we want our staff initiating, or so that's what I'm hearing from you, is you're not looking for it to be initiated by our staff, but to pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah, I'll just agree, but I want to throw my 2 cents, which is we avoided a major error when we decided not to do it the last time, and the jurisdictions that did take it up and pass something had to backtrack and undo what they had done. So I'm pleased we didn't do it before, and I'm glad we're not taking it up again affirmatively. I too am interested to hear if there's a broader regional initiative, but I think to do it alone would be a huge mistake.
So I am not seeing any, looking for direction for staff. I'm not seeing that we want to add this to our work plan, but please stay in the know.
All right, thank you. If you move into the core services section, what's on the screen right now, all of these items we feel fit into the category of either sustainability action plan or the pros long range and trails plan. You know, some of these items like add multi-use fields or park in the north end, that should be vetted out through the pros long range and trails plan. And so that's why we're proposing that those would fall under those items.
Josh?
Yeah. Maybe just a question about that. So would you say that like staff would basically, you know, like to use those processes of developing those plans to sort of understand and vet these ideas, as opposed to like elevating any one of them to a policy matter for council in this year? Is that?
That would be staff's proposal, is that, you know, through the development of the sustainability action plan, LSAB would be involved in that, staff would be involved in that. And then, you know, what are items that should be coming forward for council consideration? If there's specific items on here that you feel very strongly should be included, that's direction that we can provide to staff. And then in terms of the pros long range and trails plan, there's significant community engagement with that. And so we hate to circumvent that process and then elevate things that may not reach as high a priority as other items through that process.
Okay.
Here's the second page of core services items that, again, either are already scheduled for council consideration. This is where, you know, review water rate structure. We're going to have a workshop in March that covers the rate structure as well as tap fees, the evaluate and update impact fees. We're currently working on that. And so there's a lot of these items that we feel already fit under existing initiatives. But again, if council feels differently or if you want to elevate any of these items, we're looking for direction. And if not, I can go into the direction sought items for core services.
Oh, sorry. You've got 3 things in here twice. Water conservation, through smart technology, bird city designation, and collaborate with neighboring communities, and then got those three again.
Thank you. We can shorten this list.
Yeah.
I like the efficiency there.
Strike those three.
Yes. All right. Going in, oh, go ahead.
Yes.
So I was going to make a suggestion. I feel like there are a number of utility, especially water related utility items that are, some of these are planned to come before council. And I was wondering about sort of wrapping those up into a heading maybe with the wastewater treatment plant expansion in the work plan. And so, calling out explicitly some of the things right here on the list, and then I don't know.
So I was curious, with the information that's going to be presented to council in March, is this specifically related to the authorization we gave for some additional spending? And so therefore it needs to be in the conversation about the water rates, or is this a whole brand new water rate conversation with Public Works?
This is an informative presentation to provide the foundation and background as to how the rate structure was determined and how tap fees are determined. So it's to walk council through our rate structure, why we have the rate structure, and then also tap fees, because what I've heard is a desire to understand the modeling and the rate structure and tap fees more, and what goes into those calculations, and not only the actual calculations, but then the methodology, because other agencies use different methodologies. And what I've heard is, can we have like a reduced consumption model that would result in a reduced rate? So it's really, here's what we do. You provide us input in terms of if you want us to evaluate different structures. So it's setting that base foundation so that everybody has what our current structure is based on.
So being it's an informational, it's more than, should we determine from that, maybe we want to add something to the 27 work plan that would be related to water rates versus trying to add this to a work plan for this year for water rates.
It could be, if that's what council wanted to do. Yeah. Okay. So if we get into the items under core services, I'm happy to go line item by line item, but we have a 1% dedicated arts contribution from the capital fund.
Yeah, thanks, Dietrich.
I'd suggest we roll that into the budget process. It makes sense as a budget item.
The next is the funding options for significant capital projects like underpasses and playing fields.
Dietrich, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I'll speak to this one. I suggested this, and the reason is we have a lot of items on our wish list that, as we heard tonight, sort of exceed capacity of existing facilities. We don't have clear mechanisms in place that would raise the kind of money you need to raise to expand facilities or build new facilities or purchase whatever the case may be. This would be to have, I think it's almost like a one meeting discussion of what is the level of interest in a bond measure, a tax measure, whatever the case may be, to fund some of the capital project wish list items that are out there. I can see a case being made for rolling this into the budget as well, but it's of such significance that I would consider it essential to have a council discussion about it at some point, sort of separate from all the other moving pieces in the budget.
Yeah, my first sort of question from a bandwidth percent, it seems to be that having a conversation about how we fund big things is one thing, but saying, hey, we want to do a bond measure, like that would be big news for staff, right? Is like if we had intention on having a new tax go to the ballot this November, I'm thinking how much bandwidth would that be. And so if this is a conversation about, how can we fund big things, and maybe the answer ends up being, well, we might want to consider bond, like, when do we find out that what we're asking staff to do is have, a tax on I'm just trying to figure out the timing of all that, because I'm happy to have this conversation. I think it's really interesting. I'm also concerned about that if what this creates is a bond measure this year.
No.
Okay.
Certainly my intention would be to Finance Committee has started having some preliminary discussion around this. I think it's important to have some council discussion around it. I do not anticipate by any stretch of the imagination this would result in going to the ballot in this calendar year with something, any sort of substantial thing beyond the historic preservation that we're probably already going to do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate that clarity. I mean, I am in full support of that conversation about what we do with the CIP. You're like, well, we can't possibly afford that. And so it's just sort of like the answer is no, but can it drop into a bucket of like, oh, wish list? Like, okay, well, do we want to have a conversation about, funding the things we can't possibly afford without going to the taxpayers? We just kind of bump it and say, well, we'd have to go to the taxpayers for that. And we don't talk about it anymore. So I'm really open to that conversation myself.
I agree, though. I think it should come with our budget conversation.
Yeah. Mayor?
Yeah, I guess what I wanted to do is sort of play a devil's advocate a little bit. Yeah, we're doing a 2-year budget this year. We're working on that. And there may be good reason for not doing a tax measure beyond the the historic preservation tax. But I guess my question to Councilmember Hefner is, why not a ballot measure in the fall if it was something we were interested in?
Well, that may be a question for others, but I mean, for me, I think it's just, were we to say we have this meeting in mid-26 sometime and we come up with, okay, it's going to be an underpass, 2 soccer fields and a cultural arts center.
Right.
I think there's a lot of legwork, and that those are hypothetical. There's a lot of legwork between there and having something that's ballot ready. And I assume we have a lot going on, at least over the next few months, that this discussion probably isn't happening till mid-2026, like maybe at the budget retreat, maybe after the budget retreat. And I just think the timeline is probably too compressed to you got to go get bond counsel, you got to write a measure, you got to figure out what the projects are. There's just a lot to do.
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I guess I was just testing the reasons that you had for being concerned about that. I mean, there's polling that has to be done. There are a variety of things. It's not something you do without doing the spade work, that's for sure. And if we weren't going to look at it until the or the budget retreat, then we've already missed the window, because we really need to be finalized in, I think, with most bond measures or whatnot, or any ballot measure, toward the middle of the year in July. If you don't have something ready to go, then you're not going to get it. So.
Yeah, and my thought is just it's the same concern Caleb raised, that we've bitten off a lot, and that Councilmember Kern raised. We've bitten off a lot of other stuff and should try and be realistic.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm I guess doing is giving your idea a little bit of oxygen, because you've been talking about this for some time based on your work that you've been doing with the Finance Committee. And I know others on the Finance Committee have also talked about that. So I just want to make sure we kind of vet that a little bit. That's all.
I appreciate the enthusiasm.
I'll say, are you just really excited because of Lafayette's success passing their bond measure?
Careful.
And just want to run off of that?
Well,
no,
well, sorry. So 3 people, 4 actually, if you can count me talking at the same time. But I wanted to, I think you probably have direction. Judy wants one more comment. Barbara did email us in support of this as well. So I just wanted to put that on the record that she's hopeful that we have this conversation. Judy?
Yeah, so part of the reason I do think, and it would make it too late for November, but to have a conversation around budget is if staff knows, or when staff knows this is something that we even want to discuss, it could change some of their conversation, right? Because some of the things that might be missing from this is a golf club, City Hall needs some help. So I think there are lots of things to add to this conversation. And the people who are living and breathing it every day might be able to want to weigh in if we're going to take it to the taxpayers. So I just thought I would throw that out there.
Next one.
EDI task force.
Does anyone want, Josh, go ahead.
I'll speak to that one. For last year's work plan, we had actually put on the work plan having one discussion, kind of review and refresh the report from the EDI task force, and that never happened. So what I'm looking for is basically this very similar kind of thing. Just try to schedule one discussion sometime during the year at a special meeting, where we look back on the report from the task force, and sort of, just see what we still think about it. Maybe discuss, some things that we tried to do or are trying to do from that report, and sort of assess where we are with those or what happened with those. Just as and I might just add, I in particular am interested for council in trying to do a better job with applying our lens of equity when things come to us. So that's one of my particular interests in that conversation.
Maybe ask you, Danny, what kind of lift does that sound like to you? Does that sound like it sounds small to me. I'm trying to understand to you what that staff hears that request.
I was just kicked out of Zoom. Oh, I'm back. So in terms of that, so we have the presentation that was given to council from the task force. I think having the conversation, we can have the conversation, but we also know that will probably result in, well, okay, we haven't done these initiatives, or we need to update this, or, we need to implement this, which I think based upon this being a lens for the work plan, I think that's an important thing to do. So I guess my perspective is just to walk into it knowing it's not just one meeting. It's going to be a meeting to review, but then there's going to be action items that come out of that as a result of that.
And maybe I'm interested in how it's not checking any of the boxes of this is already coming to council, or that if it's not forming a new task force, it's like kind of taking the previous suggestions and how are we doing against that? It kind of seems like, I'm not trying to make this easy for you, but it kind of seems like, oh yeah, no, we're doing it. It's going to be in so many things that we're doing, say the comp plan, say the housing plan, oh yeah, we'll be readdressing those things. So just make sure we're bringing that to those conversations, but it kind of feels like you could have checked a bunch of boxes there to say, well, yeah, this will be coming in a lot of ways because it's a lens we look through.
Yeah.
But can we be intentional about, seeing that actual report again while we're having some other conversations related to it?
Right. Yeah, I know that there's been some recent emails to council about the community desire that we do revisit that. And then, because there's a lot of work that went into that. And so, bringing that forward, evaluating, are we, doing the things that were recommended? We can definitely do that refresh. It's really council's prerogative.
Okay, one, I'll ask, is that sufficient for you? And then two, I'll ask how people feel about that. But does what Diana just said Does that work for you, or are you looking for more than that?
No, that works.
And is that okay for you guys? Feeling like? This comment. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll say I found your comments persuasive. I'm satisfied with the progress the city is making on this front. I don't know that I would spend additional council time on it.
I would agree.
So I'm not hearing a meeting. Mayor, your hands up.
Yeah, I actually was asking how many meetings you're talking about because I wasn't clear on that. I think I would support meeting, but to review what we're doing. But how many meetings were you kind of implying if we had any meetings at all, Diana? Or
Are you
were
asking Josh or Diana? Chris, are you asking Josh or Diana to answer that question?
I was asking Diana primarily.
Okay.
But
Councilmember Cooperman suggested one meeting.
yeah, I would support that.
Mayor, you're frozen. Oh, you're not frozen.
Can't hear.
We can't hear you though.
Really?
Oh, we can kind of hear you if you speak up.
You can't hear me?
Yeah, get close.
One meeting would be fine for me.
Okay. You can help me if you're hearing the same thing I'm hearing. I'm hearing there's not consensus for a specific meeting about this, but there is interest in bringing it in conjunction with other meetings regarding it. Do you hear that? I'm trying to understand if we can move forward or not.
Yeah, however we program it, whether it's part of the regular agenda or if it's part of one of the workshops, we can accommodate it if that's council's direction.
So you don't have that direction yet.
I'm not clear. I'm
Okay.
I'm hearing some split
No, let's keep talking.
comments. Yeah.
I mean, we can do a straw poll as like, I'm okay with this specific D task force coming, but the report coming into something else we're talking about and not just that we're using the lens generally. I don't want a whole meeting, or I don't want it to have its own agenda item in a meeting. Sorry, my mic was off. I don't want to have its own agenda item, but I do want it to be incorporated. So that would be my vote. Is that your vote? Or straw poll vote? Or you want something more, at least that, maybe more?
I was looking for something a little bit more, but
Okay, so an actual meeting. And then Chris, I heard, would be fine with a meeting. So we've got two for at least a meeting. Haven't heard anyone else posturing for a meeting. Deb, you've been a little quiet.
I don't think that there's a need for an actual meeting, but I would like it to be a point of discussion for everything that we decide.
Okay. So Judy and Dietrich, I'm not hearing a meeting.
Right.
So I'm not hearing that we're giving you direction for a meeting.
Yep, that sounds like.
And then I do think we're giving direction between those two and me. Like, I think we're pretty clear.
Yeah.
We'd like this to be.
So what I'm hearing, as we move forward in preparing council communication reports, we can focus more when we talk about the work plan in terms of how the items are complying with the sustainability and EDI lenses.
Fine with the lenses.
Great.
The environmental.
Keep the lenses. Let's keep the lenses.
All right, I think we're ready to move on.
All right, next item, City Hall workspace.
I don't know what that means.
It's the space for, so City Hall workspace right now is at max capacity. And so I know that in years past, there's been an evaluation and review of whether it's upgrades to City Hall or expansion. There's been a lot of plans that have been evaluated. And so it's be bringing that item forward again for consideration.
Okay, so this is I mean, on the document, it said that a council member wanted this. So stuff is.
I can't hear. Somebody turned off the. Caleb,
I apologize, Chris.
Sorry.
No, I was just looking at the thing, and so this is not about a council workspace, even though it was council member brought up that we want to talk about city hall workspaces. And would you, as as the city manager, would you agree that that's a topic that is of like, I'm just trying to understand.
It would need to be a budget item for consideration, so it could be part of the budget discussion. Yes.
I think this falls into kind of what I brought up before, that we're going to talk about bond measures and put this with the budget stuff and see how much money
How
we
does that
really
feel
need
for
to do that.
everybody? Making sure this is a part of the conversation when we're in budget? Great.
All right. Consideration of potential charter updates. So we have an ongoing list of items that we would like to bring before the voters for potential charter updates. Some of those would, or what an example of that would be aligning the executive session rules with the state of Colorado. Ours are more restrictive. And so it'd be expanding that to align with that. I know that the city clerk has a list of other items. One would be, another potential item could be related to the number of signatures required for initiatives. So there's a variety of things that we would like to at least discuss with council to see if there's a desire to place that on the ballot.
Yeah, I'm seeing thumbs up and head nodding. I guess my only question to you, a charter amendment feels like a really heavy lift. How does this play into our workload? I mean, am I wrong?
Well, we probably already have the language somewhat drafted because it's pretty straight forward
I
in
hear
terms
staff
of the
being like,
proposed.
thanks for the thumbs up. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're all giving a thumbs up. Staff,
Yes.
you're not upset with us for putting
No.
this on your plate. Great.
The next item is image and video capture policy. And this was the second item that Mayor Pro Tem Hamilton recommended to place on the agenda, on the work plan.
I can speak for this.
Yep, Dietrich.
So the idea here would be coming off our conversation about Flock and certainly what's happened in Denver and other places to try and craft some sort of policy about when the city is collecting surveillance type data from people. How does that work in terms of, does it come to council? If it comes to council, what do we talk about? What's sort of the decision point? Is it something that the city staff will implement without coming to council, or do they have to come to us? What's the mechanism by which the city considers and approves technologies similar to the flock cameras?
Judy?
Yeah, I do think this would be necessary because I think it'll actually help. It's kind of like putting together a list of things for, development. If there's boxes to check, it makes it faster and easier to do something. So whether that's the police department, we just saw an idea that came from the open space department that I think would fall under this purview. Like maybe, some of the ideas that come out of that conversation, they would have known like, oh, we won't even present this when we don't need to spend hundreds of hours researching, something to bring to council. We know that this just doesn't fit the bill. So I think a couple of hour, maybe it's like one conversation and then a follow-up that's like a direction to staff and they come back with something to help align a good citywide policy. So it's not just for the police, but it's for everybody, makes a lot of sense to me. Assuming we need your help in figuring then what do we kick? Because that's going to take, that's a discussion direction meeting plus some time for you guys to craft it. And that's my hard part is where does that sneak in under the core service and where does something get pulled? So I would need some help from everyone figuring that out.
Janet, do you want to speak to how much time that sounds like it'll take staff?
Research to see if other agencies have such a policy. And then I think it would be a discussion direction item to understand the scope of what you're looking for in a policy. And then once we had that, we'd really be working probably more so with city attorney's office to help us draft the policy.
I will say, I think if we're having a conversation around that, that is going to draw, and we should make sure that we announce it publicly, a lot of public conversation. So that might be something that we all want to prepare for under that.
Okay, so we're ready for thumbs up. We're looking for, with 6 of us, 4 people. I see Mayor with his thumb up. And I know, so that's enough of us.
Okay, the next few items were brought forward by our advisory boards. So sustainability, open space, and PPLAB. And so the next item is Climate Resilience Fund or tax to support local climate adaptation and mitigation efforts. This is one of those items that could potentially be explored as part of the XL franchise agreement renewal to see if there's anything that we could incorporate in that renewal, or if there's a desire to explore a climate resilience fund or tax.
Looking for comments, but I'll say that, when I see, fund or tax, it sounds like if we were to take this up, this would be part of the budget. Like, if we're looking to take something to the ballot, whether it's 2027 or what have you, do we want to include, I've argued many times that we would have a much larger impact, helping our residents, retrofit their homes, for instance, than some of the rules we have for fewer homes. But that would be for me a conversation in that, like, is this, do we want to do a tax for that? That would be in the budget conversation for me. So not its own work plan item, but part of the budget conversation.
And should somehow this fall under the sustainability action plan?
It could, yes.
Because I would imagine that several of the things that we want to do or achieve with that would require some greater level of funding. And maybe it's a discussion of changing the bag tax to accommodate for this, because we kind of already have some of that in the form of a bag tax. We use it for that. So maybe it's a...
One thing I'd also like to note with LSAB, I know that there's an interest in terms of maybe a resident-led initiative related to a climate resilience fund or tax. So that's something to keep in mind too, as to whether or not the city wants to take the lead on something, or if wait and see if a resident comes forward with something.
I'm in the wait and see camp. I don't necessarily want to do this as a standalone item or as part of the budget. But if there are residents who think it is a worthy cause and they can get it on the ballot and get it on votes, I'm happy to see it go that way.
Mayor?
I agree with Dietrich. And I think, one thing I would tell you is this is one of those questions that I think we create expectations if we say we're going to fold it into a budget discussion. And I think this is one where, if there is really momentum behind it, council ought to be talking about doing this now as as part of the work plan, because there's a lot of legwork that needs to be done. We just talked about why we're not going to do that with an infrastructure related bond or tax measure. So I'm not really interested in, if we're not going to be full throated in favor of that or finding some amount in the budget for this, I don't think it's fair to the people to suggest that that's what we're angling toward.
I guess I don't really understand why, what the tax would be used for. I don't think we should be talking about taxing our citizens before we have an idea of what the goal is that we need to tax them for, like specifically in much greater detail. That's why I was like, if it wanted to be part of the sustainability action plan conversation, that's one thing. I don't want to specifically have a tax conversation, if I can make that clear. So I guess that means I'm more agreeing with Dietrich and Chris on this. And I guess that is more of a wait and see, but to have Hannah and her team, if there's specific plans or ideas, LSEP's got something concrete that they wanted to present to us when they do, then that's fine.
Okay. Josh?
Um, the I think the kinds of things that LSAB has in mind, for funding are like, basically rebates or incentives for residents and or businesses to electrify. Um, I don't know if they're also thinking about, but I would think about, again, rebates and incentives for people to do home hardening, defensible space. So, those kinds of things that, yeah, like we are using bag tax money for some of those kinds of things at the moment, not on the resilience side, but just to have, like a dedicated funding source to be able to help our community members do things to reduce their carbon emissions, to make their properties safer, I think is what the main idea is. And so it's, I mean, at the council level, I think it's a question of whether or not we want to have that kind of funding or not. And I don't know, for me on the sustainability side, there are rebates and incentives out there. They go up and down depending on political decisions and things like that. And and so part of it is, like, well, if there already are really good incentives and rebates out there offered through other things, then okay, then it's not necessary for the city to have its own funding stream. And at the moment, like, it's kind of there are questions about some of those rebates and incentives, whether they will go away or not, and things like that. So I mean, I'd be happy to have a discussion as part of the budget process. I mean, we do in our budget provide a little bit of money to to the county, and then it goes through Energy Smart to provide these kinds of rebates, and we do allocate bag tax money. So I'd be interested in having a conversation about whether we, want to find ways to increase those budget streams and also pay for kinds of resilience sort of things.
I think it's clear that council's not giving direction to have a meeting or spend, like, have on our work plan this item. And whether or not we talk about it when we talk about budget is up to us. Like, if someone brings it up during the budget conversation, we will then talk about it. We might have no support for it, lots of support for it, but this doesn't, I think I'd like to move on. It doesn't sound like anyone's trying to have this be a work plan item, and save it for another day. So the rodenticide ordinance.
Right. So OSAB would like the city council to consider an ordinance to ban the use of rodenticides
On private property,
I was just gonna say.
right? Because we do ban
Right,
it on
yes,
public
yeah.
stuff. Can I get a sense from you again, kind of the time? Is that like a really light lift because it exists everywhere and it's just a matter of doing it? Or is it like, oh, public outreach meetings, direction? Like,
We would
lots of
definitely
stuff.
want to have community engagement with this. And so there would be a need to have those meetings, and then preparing the ordinance itself, I don't see as too much of a heavy lift, but it's going to be the outreach and then the education, and then what is the enforcement mechanism afterwards.
Is this something that OSAB can do instead of, like, as part of one of their meetings?
I mean, OSAB could, in terms of, yes, they could, recognizing there's a staff liaison that's going to be coordinating much of that.
Okay. So it sounds to me like this is going to be a heavy lift. I think, Barbara and I brought this up before, that this was something to discuss. But I think, given the bandwidth that you're mentioning, I don't know how it fits in.
It also might be something that, because once we complete the pros plan, my understanding is we then transition into updating the open space management plan. So there could be opportunity to, I see Adam, like Adam's texting me. Let me see what he said here. Oh, it's also for public land out of OSAB purview. Thank you, Adam.
It's for public.
Yeah, he said it's also for private land out of OSAB purview. So OSAB, yes, yes.
But not private property.
Okay. So any comments on whether we want to add a rodenticide ordinance to our work plan for 2026? Sorry, are we ready to kind of give our opinions and more comments about it? Okay.
Okay.
I agree. I think it's going to take up too much time. I'm in favor of it, but I think that there was the hope that it would be like a simpler conversation with council and staff versus like massive additional. And it sounds like it's going to take a lot of additional time and work. So I would defer to say this year is not the right year for us.
So like this.
Yeah, kind of a half. Yeah.
All right, next we have a plan for a 2028 vote to make the 2C sales tax permanent. Open
Yep,
space.
space tax.
Yes.
Yeah, so that it was a 10-year, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
My comment on it is just that I don't know if I agree with it being permanent to begin with, and if I do, it's not urgent because it's a 10-year thing, and so I think if it's something we want to do, I would not add it to our work plan this year because it completely lacks urgency. So
All right.
not supportive.
I agree. It's something we might want to do, but this is the wrong year.
And it's interesting that the ask is for the 2028 vote. Like, okay, anyway. So I think they're also recognizing that it's not urgent,
Right.
but I don't think it's something we need to work on. And I don't hear disagreement. Okay.
Dark sky designation near open spaces. Rob could probably speak to this item. My understanding is there was an ordinance that was brought forward to council for consideration, and it wasn't passed due to commercial impacts. Was that right, Rob?
Yeah, I think largely there was concern about commercial impacts citywide dark sky ordinance. And I think, we don't have any residential standards that are. We have commercial standards in our current design guidelines that aren't perfect, but they tick a lot of the boxes. So I think there was some discussion about our land development code rewrite could absolutely address this citywide if council wanted to address it. If you really implement best practices, there's costs associated with that. I'm not familiar with this one specifically coming from OSAB, and it specifically says near open space. So it sounds like it's a more targeted effort to figure out how to apply dark sky standards within some proximity of open space, but I'm not familiar with that request.
Josh?
Actually, I forget if they said more in their letter or not. I mean, I think there are two kind of possible interpretations. One is, are they asking for regulations for properties near open space? On the other side, there are, Dark Sky International is a nonprofit that works on dark sky all over the world, and they do designations. So like, just like we have a bird city designation and a bee city designation, they do that kind of thing. So I don't know if the request is to work towards designating some portion of our open space as a dark sky area, but yeah.
I think most of those designations come along with regulations. It's a little bit different than like a bee city and things. In order to meet all the standards, you'd have to have kind of broad compliance and regulations typically.
Yeah, to ensure that it,
Okay, so this is, we're assuming dark sky designation, like working on bringing back some version of what staff already brought us a couple of years ago. Was that 2 years ago, Rob? Okay, 2 or 3 years ago. Do we want to bring that conversation back? My opinion would be no.
No.
Other I got 2 no's. Josh?
I mean, as I said at a previous meeting, I mean, I'd like to bring that conversation into our rewrite of the design standards.
Yeah, and I'm, for what it's worth, I'm in support of dark sky. I voted for it. It failed, that's fine. So I'm not saying I don't want it. I'm saying I don't know that there's huge value in it, as far as workload. And I think agreeing with Josh that it can present itself in a lot of ways. I mean, we have a lot of code already that doesn't allow for new lighting that's upward and all that. So, yeah, we're there.
All right, the next item is from PPLAB, and it's reviewing the integrated weed management plan formally and considering private property to include in a ban of pesticide usage. And so just internally, PROS is proposing to budget to update the integrated weed management plan in 2027.
I don't think we need to deal with that.
Mayor?
Yeah, I say, if that's true, I think we deal with that in the PROS plan. There's no need to deal with it here.
Dietrich?
I agree that the 2027 and PROS plan is good enough for me.
Okay, thank you. So the last item on core services is clubhouse community facility at Coal Creek Golf Course.
Dietrich?
I think that's one that could be on our list of potential capital projects.
Yeah. I agree that I would like to talk about that at that time.
What about now? You're gonna talk about it now.
Yes, do that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Moving on to safety. These are items that we feel are already covered. So power shutoff support. In terms of, that's an ongoing effort. We will have Nicole with Excel presenting to council in February. Additional use of text communications. So that's something that we would cover under preparedness. And then determining the next phase for resilience. We really see that as with Boulder ODM implementation. That's something that from a staff perspective that we need to evaluate and then propose to council what the next phase would be for resilience. So then the next item under safety is the LFPD wildfire and conflagration risk assessment, which is scheduled to come before council on February 17th for presentation. So the 2 items under safety, and I'm not sure if this next item really falls under safety, but a land acknowledgement from the city. And then the second item is the pedestrian and bicyclist improvements to the intersection of South Boulder Road and Main Street.
Okay. So any comments on the first one? Land acknowledgement from the city. I might ask Diana to also give us a sense of time, how much time that would take the city to craft for adoption.
I think I need a better understanding of what's being requested under this item.
Josh?
That's my suggestion. It could be very minimal and it's just a formal land acknowledgement like many places have, that we put in strategic places on the website or whatnot. My preference would be to do something more. And I would actually prefer for it to be like some kind of community led thing rather than a council thing. But I just kind of wanted to get it out there.
Make a suggestion that I hope isn't controversial, but that this should be wrapped up in the 250, 150 conversations, like to be celebrating 150 years as a state and not acknowledging the full history of our land would be, I would sort of assume that would come with the telling of 150 years of Colorado. So, land acknowledgements are very common. Some are given at every single meeting, right? So, I think that part's simple, but I think maybe a more in-depth look at it, I think would be appropriate in cultural services to add to the 150, 250 acknowledgements. Would you entertain that?
Yeah, absolutely.
How would other people feel about that?
I think again, if it's part of the conversation and part of the public input process, perhaps I don't think that this was the inappropriate place to bring this up on the council work plan, though.
Yeah, I'm maybe saying it's not a council work plan, like we're saying this isn't a meeting for us to have on our council work plan, but it is something that maybe I'm looking for staff to acknowledge that direction that we'd like to be considered there. Is that reasonable?
Happy to consider the work that goes into creating a land acknowledgement. As far as it being community sourced, that isn't something that our team is currently resourced to take on at capacity inside of the 250, 150 planning. Coming up with the research and doing an actual land acknowledgement is something I can develop capacity for, but community input process would stretch us beyond our means. 250, 150 is already being supplementally funded. And so we would need to talk about other resources to align with that to take on another project.
Sufficient? Are we okay?
I just want to make sure I'm clear what the decision is, which is council is not doing it and we're not giving new direction to staff to do something they're not already doing.
That's what I'm understanding.
I'm not interested in giving any new direction about this topic, just to be clear.
I would agree.
We had not had a land acknowledgement in our current plan for workload.
Okay, so we have a couple people who would like that. We have a couple of people who wouldn't. Haven't heard from Chris or Deb on how you guys feel about staff working on that as part of the 150.
It'd be nice, but not if staff doesn't have the capacity to do it. Either time or money.
Chris, do you want to weigh in at all? You're muted, so.
If it's de minimis, I mean, if it's a small amount of time, staff spends on that because the work has already been done by others in this area, and I think there's a lot of work that's been done by others in this area and physically in our region. It probably isn't all that big a deal to try to draw on that and do it.
Happy to move forward with creating a land acknowledgement with the understanding that there would not be a community input process.
I thought I heard 3-3.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I'm like, I feel like there's 3-3 to staff time, and because I don't think that this should proceed without community input. That's incredibly presumptuous, and this will take a fair amount of staff time, and then depending on how extensive it wants to be. I mean, if it's a letter that says we acknowledge this as part of the history of Louisville and we're done, then staff can say to us, it's an afternoon and we'll copy it from another community. But it sounds like there's a lot more work that would have to go into that and a lot of research to determine what that is specifically for the land that Louisville is on. And we wouldn't want to get it wrong. Yeah. So that's my concern. I
heard Chris say if it's not a lot of work, I'd be fine with it. Josh and I are in full support of it. And I heard Deb say only if it's not a lot of work. So I think that's direct. If it's not a lot of work, then great. And if it is a lot of work, don't take that on. Is that fair?
Yeah, just a suggestion there. The county has done a whole bunch of work on this, and I think they'll have plenty of resources. The other thing is I heard a land acknowledgement for Louisville at an event the Cultural Services sponsored. I can't remember what it was, a couple of years ago. And again, I don't think it's presumptuous. I think you can say, well, we want a whole bunch because we want maybe you can put a lot of effort into it, but I think you can also recognize who had the land. And that's the gist of it, I think. I mean, if staff came back and they said, wow, we're going to step into an absolute quicksand if we do this. then I would agree that that may not be something we want to get into. If it requires a bunch of public input, then maybe not. But I just don't see it that way.
Yeah, I agree. It's known information that has already been said out loud by other people. It's not, I do not want you to research who used to live on this land. I believe that's a known fact. Okay. Are we ready? Move on?
For the next item, yes, please.
Okay. Pedestrian and bicyclist improvements to the intersection of South Boulder Road and Main Street. I understand, Josh, this is something you were interested in.
Yeah, that's right. So I think a lot of us have heard about issues with the intersection of Main Street and South Boulder. And we've talked about an underpass there, but the underpass there is particularly expensive because there are complications. So I'm interested in some sort of targeted improvements to this intersection, far short of an underpass, but I think which could still make it a much better intersection than it currently is. And you know, I hear about this when I've gone out door knocking, and having lived in Steel Ranch when we first moved to Louisville, we went through that intersection pretty much daily. So you know, what I guess what I'm looking for is, you know, trying to prioritize some of these improvements to that intersection in the list of transportation infrastructure projects that the city is considering. And so I don't know how much council time it really requires, but I think it seems like it does require some input from council to say, yes, we would like these improvements to be prioritized over others or over something.
Yeah. So my only comment would be, I'm making an assumption that this was put on here because it was requested, but I think it's entirely too granular for our work plan. I don't disagree that I ride my bike on that all the time and I think it's a disaster, but I don't know that the work plan is where we address like specific, so obviously like traffic safety, transportation safety, and so I think point this out. So I think maybe the question is, how does someone like Josh get this specific spot, highlighted, if not in the work plan? Like, if we're not going to talk about in the work plan, when can a councilperson bring this particular spot to someone's attention, if not in the work plan?
Yeah, through the budget process, capital improvement program. And so this would be something just to request that Public Works budget in the 2027 CIP. And if you're looking for it to be 2026, then that would require a supplemental budget adjustment.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is that it needs some planning so that, doing it this year is probably not likely to happen. Yeah, so again, I mean, I don't know how much planning it would take. So, if we did get it in the 2027 CIP, would we?
I think that's a good point because my understanding is there's kind of 4 different things that were discussed that require different levels. Some that just wouldn't be supported by staff in general. Others that would require different levels of planning. Some are pretty minor. That could possibly be absorbed with existing budgets. Others would be more expansive and require some design work and then budgeting. And so depending upon the level of improvements, but that again could be part of the CIP process where we could evaluate what is council looking for. We could present, what are the different options for what we could do to improve that intersection.
Very comfortable taking this to the CIP part of our work plan.
Yeah, I think that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, the remaining items related to housing we feel are already covered. So evaluating the smart stair concept would be under the development code. I will say that Chief Milan has specifically told me he's not a fan of the single stair concept as we move forward, but that's something that could be evaluated as part of that. The hiring consultant or adding an FTE to assist in implementing the housing plan, we feel like that should be a budget discussion item. Rezone to encourage housing. We've already talked about doing that as part of the, as we're proceeding with the development code update and the implementation of the comp plan. And then a more substantive affordable ADU program. I know that community development is working on some different initiatives related to ADU and a potential grant application, is my understanding, to assist with some of that development.
Great.
Okay, thank you for the input on this.
Thanks.
Okay. We okay to move on? Great. So the last item on our agenda is discussion direction for upcoming agenda items and identification of new ones. It is 9:27. We pushed this a couple times. I know there might be some critical things we want to talk about, but Dana, do you feel like this is?
I feel like we can get through this fairly quickly if council would like to do so.
How are we doing? Good. I got a thumbs up from the one that would give us a thumbs down if he really wanted to. So we're good.
Okay. So please, I see the mayor has his hand raised.
No, I'm going to bow out.
Thanks.
I will leave it to your capable hands, all of you. Thank you very much. We'll talk
Good night,
soon.
Chris.
Thanks,
Feel
Mayor.
better.
Thanks.
All right. So looking ahead for the February 3rd agenda, right now we are working on a resolution related to fire restrictions to make them concurrent with Boulder County. So if Boulder County and the sheriff implement fire restrictions within the unincorporated area adjacent to Louisville, we would have the same automatically. Amendment to the IGA with Boulder County for dispatch services, and then also for co-responder services. So it's extending those contracts. Under regular business, we will have an executive session. I'm trying to get the Boulder ODM IGA. I have one final item that I'm working through with Mike Chard, but trying to put it on this one. If not, it'll be the next one. Non-functional turf ordinance. This is to comply with a state requirement that non-functional turf, including artificial turf, be banned within for any new construction. This would be the first reading. I saw, do you have any questions?
So this was like a state bill that came through,
Yes.
the House bill, right? So
Yes.
we're aware of this as we're having discussions with Front and Center, like.
Front and center would be functional turf.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Next would be the Red Tail Ridge GDP amendment, second reading. The Coal Creek Village, second reading. Emergency ordinance for defensible space within the Marshall Fire Rebuild area. And then the ordinance for the lease purchase of 1155 Pine Street, second reading. So we are currently finalizing all of the council communication reports for that agenda. February 10th, we have the city count. Oh, go ahead.
Could you just say another word about what the emergency ordinance is likely to say exactly?
Yeah, I will try my best and then Rob can chime in. So within the Marshall Fire Rebuild area for the zone of 0 to 5 feet adjacent to a structure, non-combustible ground covers, plants that meet I'm trying to remember the exact term.
The Colorado State Forest Service has a list of fire resistant plantings. So part of it would be to potentially allow those in the 5 feet. That could be taken out if council, when we have that
Right.
discussion.
And so there's not only the houses that are remaining to be built, there's houses under construction and then houses that are completed that have not landscaped. So this would apply to all of those properties.
And what would be the potential for doing that as a temporary moratorium as opposed to an emergency ordinance?
My recollection, if you recall, we do not require landscape permits. And that was one of the things that we talked about with the city attorney is a moratorium would be if you had a process in place, such as a permit requirement where you could stop it. So this is the emergency ordinance is the more appropriate route to go. An alternative would be to include this in the WUI code discussion, but council did give direction to staff to move forward with preparing this at the December meeting. Okay. February 10th is the joint city council ELT workshop. It's actually going to be 10 to 4. Next is the February.
Sorry, just can somebody send an updated calendar on that one? I
Yes.
have it as a 6 to 10 p.m.
Oh.
on my calendar.
Okay.
And I mean, I might not be able to come. I have a bunch of stuff blocked up during the
Okay.
day.
What did you say?
10 to 4. All right, the February 17th meeting, we have the Excel presentation, a presentation from the Ember Alliance on the Louisville Fire Protection District wildfire risk and conflagration assessment, discussion direction on citywide defensible space and WUI map, the second reading for non-functional turf ordinance, and then also a first reading for EV charging facility zoning code update. And that is also required to come into compliance with state rules. So you can see February 17th is going to be a very heavy agenda from a presentation and discussion perspective. Moving to February 24th, discussion direction related to Via Appia. So Kurt is going to have some data related to how the striping improvements have impacted speeds, and then also have some options for consideration if you want to do pilot project for installation of roundabouts at various intersections or installation of more permanent items. So all of these will be up for discussion. And then we moved the discussion related to approval of the 2026 work plan to this because the February 17th agenda was so heavy.
So to bring up the point that Josh brought up with related to the safety at the intersection at South Boulder and Maine, since the Via Appia thing has a budget impact, and I think am I correct to assume this budget impact is above and beyond what has already been allocated for the restriping, correct?
Correct.
So, did you want to? You go ahead. Yeah. No, you're good.
You may not have been around for this, but I pulled this up. So in 2019, when we were looking at the underpass, we did a study of intersection improvements all up and down South Boulder Road. We got grants. We actually made improvements at this intersection. Not to get into the details tonight, but we made some improvements that we felt like we could make at that time. And that's not to say there couldn't be more improvements. I would just say one of the reasons we had the limited improvements we made is there's right-of-way issues with making more improvements than we've already made. So I think it comes to a bigger discussion and cost going beyond what we did in 2019 and 2020, if that helps decide if you want to dig into it.
That's at South Boulder in Maine.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
what I'm saying.
but
Because I was saying this might be a good time to find where there's priority. Instead of talking about doing a roundabout at Pine Via Appia, maybe there's pedestrian safety and infrastructure priorities that are at other intersections, especially ones that impact safe routes to school for kids to LMS, for example. So I didn't know if maybe that would be an appropriate spot to say, we're concerned about pedestrian safety and we're blending in traffic flow now to what was supposed to be a pedestrian safety project. And I just, maybe we
I'm
should
sorry,
think-
I'm missing what item we're talking about.
It's February 24th special
Okay.
council meeting, the discussion and direction on Via Appia.
Okay.
And there's like $1 million potential budget impact based on some of the different recommendations. And I was just saying, we're concerned about where we might be able to discuss or have budgeting for other pedestrian safety projects. And my concern would be, we'll only focus on Via Appia and then say, well, we spent the funds, we can't do another intersection that might have been like of greater priority, if you will. Does that make sense? And, and with the discussion of roundabouts, that's more about traffic flow versus pedestrian safety. So I want to make kind of hone into that we're all having like a good, clear conversation when Kirk comes to us. So he talks about that, the pedestrian piece of this heavily, if we could, since that was the original reason for the entire project.
Yes. Okay. March 3rd, we have the citywide defensible space and WUI map first reading. We're proposing to bring forward the Marshall Fire Fee Credit Program, Coal Creek Golf Course fee approval, and then EV charging facility zoning code update second reading.
Josh?
Could you say, what is the IDF contract?
IDF would be a contract to administer the fee credit program on behalf of the city.
I have a question. When will we be getting the recommendation from the rec board about the golf course fee?
So we had the RAB meeting last night. The RAB came up with a recommendation, so I'm waiting for the memo from the RAB chair, and then I will forward that to council. And I've received some subsequent emails today from participants from the meeting last night. I will include those in the email to council.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And then March 10th, we will have a joint meeting with the Sustainability Advisory Board and then the joint meeting with the Recreation Advisory Board. This will be similar format to what we did in November with OSAB and what we did in October with the Planning Commission, where they get to have more time with you. They really enjoyed the format of that. And so we want to provide the same opportunity for all the advisory boards. Yes. And then March 17th, so March 17th is a big meeting. So we have a citywide defensible space and WUI map, the ordinance second reading, adoption of the comprehensive plan, and then ADU compliance revision first reading. This is the same week as the BVSD spring break. And so I need to understand how many council members will not be able to attend this meeting, because then we need to make a decision. Is it important to have all 7 council members here for these important topics where we need to look at rescheduling? Or is it okay if it's not all 7 council members?
I will be gone at spring break.
If I'll be here or not, because my daughter is due with her first child on March 3rd. And I told her I would come and spend 2 weeks with her when she gets home from the hospital.
Anyways, my other concern, and maybe this isn't, maybe this is so council at this point, but it's kind of like Christmas, like having a really big public meeting when there is like all of BVSD is off, like a lot of people will be on vacation. So I could imagine a lot of people from the public being like, oh my God, you had the meeting during spring break. Like, I'm not here to come give my opinion. That's actually like me being gone. I could maybe even zoom in. My wife would kill me, but I could zoom in potentially. But yeah, I'm concerned about the optics of having this 2-year planned meeting over BVSD spring break. That was why I brought it up.
So are you concerned about just about the comp plan or the other items on the agenda?
Mostly the comp plan, like I said, that I'm concerned about us having big comp plan conversation.
What if we
during a break
reverse the comp plan with one of the items from the next meeting?
I mean, does anyone else, if I'm the only person that's concerned about it, we can drop it. Is anyone else concerned about that meeting's timing?
Are we actually expecting to have very much conversation, Rob? We are?
Comp plan. Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, so because this will be, now I'm saying, so this is going to be the big one where it'll also, you'll get us, we'll have had updates on what's happening with the open house kind of thing and help us to see if we want to continue down.
Right, so
continue with finalizing it.
After the open house, we'll have a planning commission hearing. next month, and then this would be the final adoption hearing for city council. So there will no doubt be quite a bit of public comment. So that'll take a lot of time. And then I think, I'm not sure how much council discussion there will be. There may or may not be significant council discussion.
I see your concern now. I mean, I'm not particularly cognizant of public school spring breaks. So, or college campus spring breaks. So I don't really like look at this, but I see your point with expecting a lot of public comment. Although quite a bit of it does come through emails. We've had a lot of that lately. So I'm almost feeling like people might feel comfortable continuing to give us email comments if they can't be present. If this is the time that really works well, I think from a staff perspective, unless my only concern would be to not have you here for for the comp plan conversation. That probably is my
my suggestion would just be to swap the meetings of the 17th and the 24th and make the 17th a special meeting about water and the discussion, and then make the 24th the regular meeting about the comp plan. Not to like delay it till April or try to put like, just to swap those two meetings. We've done that like in July and other weird months. We've made it not the first and third. So that would be my suggestion, is to hold that meeting on the 24th.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine with me.
How does staff feel about that? How do you guys feel about that? That makes no difference? Okay. Good suggestion.
Rob, does that work for the deadline to adopt the WUI code? If we remove those,
Talking about changing the comp plan.
they're talking about swapping the whole meeting for March 17th for March 24th.
I think it's fine.
Okay.
I mean, it's the deadline's April 1st, and there's no penalty for non-compliance. So I think we're fine either way.
And aren't they also isn't there a lot of discussion right now around extending that deadline? Because there's a lot of municipalities that are going to be having a hard time complying.
Yeah, that'd be a legislative act
Mhm.
if to extend the deadline. That deadline, is in the state law. So I don't know if that'll happen. It's already been extended once. You should have seen the original deadline. It was like it's like 60 days or something after the state adoption. But we had to advocate just for what we have now. So I don't know if they'll be willing to change it.
Okay.
So I think we're close to the end, if
That was
direction on that.
That was really the meeting that I wanted to get through, is through
Yeah.
March, because just very complex. Once we get into April, we have a little bit more capacity as those meetings dates fill up. And so that was helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, so my last comment, just because we went kind of quick over things, is I am again going to have trouble on February 3rd acknowledging the emergency status of the defensible space, when February 17th we're having discussion direction citywide defensible space. Like, we're having a discussion about it 2 weeks later. So I am saying that I'm still uncomfortable having an emergency ordinance about landscaping in February. That I don't see that rises to an emergency level, but if I'm in the minority, I'm in the minority of that. So I would make that part of the bigger discussion.
There's no action plan, though. I mean, it's a conversation, a discussion, but no action is going to immediately come from our WUI conversation. It's not like the next week, all of a sudden, those new changes take effect. And I think there is urgency, and that's why. I mean, I think kind of like what Josh brought up, if there was a way to do a stay, but we don't issue permits to stay, so we have to have some way of saying, okay, we're in a high fire danger season. There are people who are adding landscaping and not creating safe spaces around the homes. And so that's the urgency for this. So there is some level to it. I mean, we just a couple of weeks ago saw a wildfire take off right at the edge of our community. So I think that even puts a spotlight on the priority for it, versus how long, Rob, before the WUI stuff would actually be implemented after we have a conversation. And it's the later in the year, isn't it?
So if we adopt in March, then it would go into effect probably the end of April. It would technically go into effect whatever we adopt for the weeks. It's 30 days after publication.
And that's assuming, right, that we can come to the decision on the mapping and what goes in it at that meeting, and we don't need to do a follow-up.
That'd be correct. That's if it's adopted.
Yeah, so again, it's a difference of 2 months.
I mean, what do you think about a stay, Caleb?
We can't do a stay.
Is there really no way to do a stay?
Rob, help me on this in terms of our conversations with Kathleen. Because we don't have a permit to, basically place holds on. And so that's really the issue.
Yeah, that's what City Attorney Kelly is telling us, that without a permitting process, we can't do a stay.
Could you do a temporary emergency ordinance?
Basically, the emergency ordinance would be in effect until we basically repeal it and replace it with something else. And so that would be the intent with the WUI code discussion, that this would be in effect for a period of time until you repeal it and then replace it with whatever you do with the WUI code defensible space discussion.
I don't know.
Dietrich?
Look, I'm sympathetic to the emergency thing. I just think we discussed this as a group of 7 and gave direction on emergency ordinance, and personally, that's good enough for me to move forward with what we all gave direction on. I know there was disagreement, but as a council, we gave direction to do that, which is why I would leave it alone.
Okay. It's the consensus.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second. With it.
All those in favor? Aye.
And yeah. Just thanks, Diana, and everyone, and Brandy, Rob, for being here. This is a big meeting and a lot of good information.